Two screens, two different views. That's what we're all about. Welcome to Dual Screen Radio, where listening is good.
This is Shane R. Monroe.
And this is Chris Hentschel.
And you're listening to our special holiday edition of Dual Screen Radio. We're back. A lot of people didn't think we were going to make it, but
we're alive.
They were wrong. Speaking of which, since we've had, a 4-month hiatus, maybe we should let the good listeners know what we've been up to.
Basically, Xbox 360. That's all we've been doing for these past months. You may have been led on otherwise, but all fooled. The
whole thing about Chris's wife having a baby and him being strapped to a chair with a baby in it, not true.
Viral marketing, yes.
Viral marketing for the 360. No, yes, we did both actually end up getting 360 since the last time we talked, and we've been having a good time on Xbox Live, playing some of the great classics, instant classics like Pac-Man CE, and, of course, Call of Duty 4 has made us its bitch. And in fact, if we weren't recording right now, that's where my ass would be right now, plastered in front of the TV, playing Call of Duty 4. Which would be my semi-decadial FPS.
Yes.
I play like 2 FPS games every decade, and this happens to be the one I'm playing in this 5 years.
It's almost like Jeepers Creepers when the creature comes out every so many years.
Like every 20 years. That's how often I play an FPS game, so. Activision deserves kudos.
Well, I hate to do this because it's a DS-related show, but I don't know if you saw today they leaked out all the information about Call of Duty 5.
No, I missed that.
Yeah, well, are you prepared to hear what I'm about to say? You're going to be horribly let down.
Oh, they're going back to World War I now?
Well, no, they're going back to World War II. I think World War I would probably be an improvement at this point. Okay, here's what I know right now.
All right.
Is that it's going to be by the company Treyarch. It's not even going to be by Infinity Ward.
You don't have to say anything else. That's it.
Not only that, it's by the guys who did the third Call of Duty, which for everybody that's played it knows it's the weakest of the series.
Yeah.
Has no soul. The other factor is we are going back to World War II. What an original concept.
Gee, like the other 700 World War II titles.
I think what we're going to have to do now is probably wait for Call of Duty 6.
Yeah, you know what this is going to be like, dude? This is going to be like the Star Trek movies. It's going to be like, except for this time it'll be like every odd number is the good one, instead of every even one being the good one.
Right.
All right, well, enough Call of Duty.
Well, no, that's not true. No. You mean the even ones. Even ones are going to be. Yeah, they're right.
Right. Yeah.
4 and 6.
You're right, 4 and 6.
2.
And 2.
All right.
Yeah, so it works out. So it's exactly
that's enough.
Star Trek.
That's enough Xbox talk now.
Yeah, let's get that off. The people are already on the site putting down nasty comments about how can you open the show with Call of Duty 4. People want to know what we're doing, keeping busy.
It is related though, because in the forum we've got a big time. We got a lot going on in the leaderboards. All the guys on the forum, when they're done with their DSs, are putting it down. We're getting it on hardcore with Pac-Man CE, and recently now Frogger is all of a sudden coming out of the woodwork. A lot of retro classics. Since that is what the forum is about. It's not, DSR is not the sole thing behind the forum. It's mostly retro gaming. So we have to throw that in there a little bit. But no, otherwise, let's see. You've been doing a lot of renovations.
Oh, I'm covered in paint right now. I'm sitting here in my paint clothes. That's And actually, as soon as we're done here, until my wife gets home, I have to go back and paint. So
he was painting a happy little tree on his wall. Yes.
That's right. I'm going to paint a happy little bush right here. Bob Ross action, which, by the way, I guess got canceled. Speaking of DS, Bob Ross got nuked. But that's okay. That paint by DS looks really good, though. That looks like
Where is Kane?
Nice. That's pretty good, dude. No one's going to get that reference, but I got the reference. Thank you very much for throwing it in just for me.
Yeah, so outside of that, of course, I got the baby dragging me down right now, so it's been a little difficult for me.
Well, the holidays are crazy anyway, dude. I mean, even without
the holidays,
I've got
trying
visitors
to clean out his games. Yeah, because you were out in the West Coast and visiting the family.
Yeah, and then now I've got family coming the rest of the month. My parents are coming, then her parents are coming, and it's a veritable zoo. I mean, who's got time for anything? But especially, and what a lot of people don't understand is you and I are on different time zones, and it's hard enough to get free time to do anything, but to get free time when both of us have free time.
Right. And now, like as Shane said, right now we probably be playing Xbox online because for me it's a good time only because it's after hours and I've now got my baby down to sleep. For me it is 10:30 p.m. Okay, and for Shane it is 8:30. Now the only reason it's not a 3-hour difference is because he's in Arizona and they buck the system, they go against the rules. They want nothing to do with this whole, daylight savings, crap. So it's very hard to line each other up.
It's a good thing, actually. I like that. Especially because it puts Chris and I closer together, so. Oh, is that sweet? You mean my BFF now? Anyway, we have an outstanding show planned for you. First of all, as promised, we have our Dual Screen Radio Best of 2007 awards to give away. And you may be surprised at who takes home the most awards this year. Very cool. I wish I had a push button that I could add some sound effects here, add some clapping and the drum.
I know, dude.
Stuff. That'd be so cool.
I know.
I'm too lazy to do that in post-production, though, so it's not going to happen.
You know what else? We don't want to be too obnoxious about it either.
That's obnoxious.
There's a lot of guys that do that on the other shows, and it gets a little old after a while. You know what I mean? We'd rather hear our wonderful voices.
Yeah. Okay, so you can use a sound mixer. Congratulations. You're cool. Yeah. Didn't we get chastised one time because we didn't have enough music playing and?
Oh yeah. We didn't have some kind of music droning on in the background.
Dude, I hate that stuff.
Although people did like the storytime music.
Yeah, that was cool. The storytime music is the bomb. But anyway, so we have the 2007 awards. We also have 4 quickie reviews. We're going to look at Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass, Dementium: The Ward, a brand new game from somebody called Gamecock. Now, don't tell me that just doesn't make you laugh out loud.
Is it Gamecock or Renegade Kid?
It's like Renegade.
One's a publisher and one's a developer, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's Renegade Kid that's the developer, and
something like that.
Yeah, because
dude, I can't get enough Gamecock. That just. Yeah, it says Gamecock. Yeah.
Well, that's the name of the. Isn't that the name of the? No, that's Shuttlecock. What am I thinking?
That's too funny though.
Shuttlecock's the little thingy you're flinging back and forth in yard tennis. So.
We're also going to do Jewel Quest, which is a shocker. One of those games that slid out of nowhere, no name, budget title, and consumed your soul. ... Yes.
And
my soul was consumed. That was pretty good. And we're going to take a look at the Namco Classic package, the offshoot.
Namco Museum DS.
Yes, the offshoot half-bastard child of the Konami Classics collection.
Right.
And so we're going to do that. We're also going to tell you a little bit about Dragon's Lair on the Nintendo DS.
This is some stuff that we've been waiting for months to talk about. I mean, we have the interview lined up, and Shane's been given special entry into the world of the Dragon's Lair DS because
I do. I have an associate producer's credit on this game. I'm officially a professional video game developer. Did you know that? I could put that on my resume as a professional.
You got to get that added to Wikipedia.
Stat. Yeah, we have to add this to Wikipedia stat. Okay. And of course, oh my God. Okay, it's been too long since we cut a show. We're all pent up energy. We also going to have our homebrew segment, everybody's favorite. And finally, we're going to tell you what's going on with the website. We got some exciting stuff going on there. You don't want to miss out on that. And I'm sure we'll come up with something else. That's what's on the agenda.
And of course, we've had a long, ongoing possibility of the contest.
Oh my goodness, we have 10 battle styluses for the Nintendo DS Lite. Now, you've heard us rant about them. You've read about them on our site. PDApanache.com was nice enough to donate us 10 more to give away. These are top-notch, high-quality styli. And trust me, once you have one of these, you won't be able to play with a regular stylus. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
You will get compliments from your friends and family. Anybody who picks one of these up go, whoa, this is a great stylus. You have a chance to get one for free. Compliments.
You walk into a bar, man. You walk into a bar with your DS and this sucker, you're going to have the girls all over you.
They will just fall over with their legs spread. That's exactly what they promise. Not really. On the PDA Panache website. And if you believe any of this, then you are in a much sorrier state than we are for coming up with it.
You got your eye on that hot little blonde GameStop manager?
Yes, you whip out that.
Yeah,
break out that battle stylus.
With the orange tip.
Stop it. This is just gonna get completely out of line. Okay, are you ready to start, Chris? Are you ready to start?
I'm ready to start the Dual Screen Radio 2007 award show.
Yeah, that's pretty good, dude. That's pretty good. Hey, you know what we ought to do for one of these shows? We ought to patch in one of those smack talk things for the Xbox. Those ones that just say random things.
Right.
That'd be
like
so great.
N-word, F-word, F-word.
Yes, 13-year-old Xbox Live players. You gotta love them. Okay then, let us get on with it. We have several categories for your consideration. Best puzzle game, best action game, best minigame collection, best platformer, best brain game, best old school game, most innovative use of the DS, best casual game, best original game, best strategy game, best RPG, and of course the coveted title, the one that every game publisher wants to have, the game of the year for 2007.
Year.
Yes.
Pinch, hitting for the Atlanta Braves. Right.
Okay. So let's get on with this. Best puzzle game. Chris, do you want to take turns doing this? How do you want to do this? We've got the list.
Sure.
Tell you what, you do the first one. I'll do the runner up, and then we'll just alternate who gets to announce the winner. Go ahead and announce the runner up first.
We all need some equal time on the show. It's been so long.
It's been so long. I need to get out.
Best puzzle game runner up of the year goes to P-Cross DS.
Yes, P-Cross DS. Yeah. Okay, so we have cheap sound effects.
It's a game that a lot of people are going to be able to pick up, play it a little bit. Once you figure it out, it's not too hard. It is almost a little bit of we've reviewed the game before, and actually what was cool is we reviewed the import version, I believe.
Yes.
And at the time, we were anxious and hoping that Nintendo would bring this to the U.S., and since then, they have brought it to the U.S. It's a good little stocking stuffer at $19.99, and is sure enough to lure in your mother, in-laws, and grandmother into the world of the DS.
Yes, it's a fantastic pick-up-and-play puzzle game.
It's excellent. Yes.
Definitely worthy of the runner-up this year for 2007. Outstanding. Even downloadable content, daily. It's got it all. You can listen to the review that we.
What I think's really cool is some of the downloadable content is actually the levels from the older P-Cross titles released for the original Game Boy, the black and white Game Boy, and the Super Nintendo of Japan. The original Game Boy version did come to America, and it had some pretty cool little puzzles. And you can now replay the first, I believe, 10 or so on your Nintendo DS. Really cool stuff.
Absolutely brilliant. It is definitely worthy of the runner-up status. So, best puzzle game of the year, 2007. I wish I could do a drum roll. Well, that sounds like something different. Sounds like you're motorboating over there. What's Kathy? The best puzzle game of 2007 Dual Screen Radio, Puzzle Quest Challenge of the Warlords. No, there was no question. Both Chris and I immediately said best puzzle game of the year. Gotta be Puzzle Quest.
Easy, hands down.
Hands down. And I guarantee you that at some point in this list, you're going to hear that title again.
Mm-hmm.
So, very exciting. Puzzle Quest, of course, now is available on almost every major platform. The Wii, the DS, Xbox 360 Live. Does PSP have one yet? I think
PSP came out day and date with the DS, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. It did.
And there was to be a PC version, which I believe is still coming. We're not sure.
You can download a nice playable demo for the PC, though.
Yeah, the PC is pretty good. It's the same demo that's available on the 360 as well.
Yes, it's exactly the deal.
I love the DS version, and then when I'm not using the DS, the 360 version is actually very, very good. Very, very good.
Very good. You get used to not having the stylus, but I'm telling you, stylus play is where this game is at.
But the only other thing is on the 360 version, you get online multiplayer.
That's right. And you get some enhanced graphics and achievements and all that stuff.
Oh, it looks really good. It's nice and crisp. I was playing it with Alex J. Lopez, a forum member, the other night. We did a best out of 3. It was really good stuff. The only problem is once you have a high level up, you're pretty much going to destroy the other guy. So that's going to be a little bit.
That could be a
The DS, I would say the only drawback to the DS version, and hopefully it'll be in a sequel if it ever comes down the ropes, would be some online play. Would be fantastic.
That would be fun. You do have some good local play, which is fine, but it's really a solo experience, and it's very good at it.
It is.
And
Lots of time in it.
No-brainer, best puzzle game of the year.
So moving on, next category is best action game.
That's right, Chris.
Very hard category. Some of these categories just were not loaded with games.
Yeah, we scrapped
DS,
3 categories, I think.
Yeah, the DS just seems to be better suited for specific types of genres, and the action category wasn't really one of the biggies. And then the few that were there weren't really games that I would say were entitled to an award.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to do the runner-up?
I'll do the runner-up.
Okay. The big action game, or the big runner-up rather, would be Shane R. Monroe.
Glory Days 2, which is what I would consider a highly advanced version of Choplifter, for those of you who are old enough to understand what that means. Take Choplifter, add a ton of missions, a little bit of strategy, a lot of action, and you've got Glory Days 2. And it was another one of those ones that I wasn't sure about until I sat down and played it. Very smooth, very slick, very old school. And I tell you what, I loved it. So definitely a worthy while title for the runner-up of Best Action Game of the Year. Chris, do tell us the number one action game of 2007.
The number one action game of 2007 goes to Brothers in Arms DS. A shocking title that came out of nowhere, originating on a cell phone, the N-Gage.
Nice. Yeah,
Side talking did not stop Brothers in Arms for competing to be the best action game on the DS.
Yes, the best action. Yeah, that was one of the categories. I think it was best action game ported from a taco. Was actually Brothers in Arms originally. No, Brothers in Arms, I'll tell you what, that blew me away. When somebody said, yeah,
pleasantly shocked.
A full 3D, action shooter on the DS, and I said, you're full of crap. And then I watched it complete with smoke effects and dirt particles and all that stuff. I was blown away.
The only thing that draws back to the game is the lack of length. It's pretty short. There's only about 4 or 5 main levels in the campaign. They're pretty lengthy, but you'll pretty much have it done in like a weekend or even a day. You'll just kind of blow through it.
Well, those things borrowed if you can.
Yeah, it's a solid little game though.
It's
really
fantastic.
Fantastic little game.
And let me tell you what, it blows the pants off the cell phone version. Because I actually downloaded the cell version, and believe me, the DS version blows it away.
Wow.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
It kind of blew me away just telling me that. Jeez.
Right?
I was looking forward to some side talking.
Yeah. So nice.
Okay,
moving on.
The next category would be best mini games.
Yeah, now you'd think that the DS would be absolutely packed with these, but there were only a couple of titles that actually managed to make our list.
A couple of them are kind of exempt at the moment because they're too new.
Yes.
And weren't released within the proper time frame. But
you're
sure to be satisfied. You're sure to be satisfied. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break in on your bit there. Go ahead.
It's a little hard. I mean, we got a delay. We're far across the country from each other.
Yeah, we're lucky it works as good as it does.
As a side note, I'm really shocked. A lot of people seem to be under the impression we do it, in person, that we're actually in a basement somewhere doing it together.
I've
actually had a couple people after all this time who think we're doing it together. That's why they're amazed we don't have more shows out. So,
believe me, if we lived in the same spot, we'd probably have a weekly show.
Yeah, I think we could have built one out. Just like the guys at Go Nintendo, they sit around a coffee table every Saturday or something.
Yeah, I want to do that.
But it must be nice to have that time. But anyway, what is the runner-up, Mr. Monroe?
Oh, do I get to do the runner-up on this one? Why don't you do the runner-up on this one? I'll do the number one because I think that's sort of
Yeah, you like I know what you like. Yeah, we flipped that around. Okay.
We flipped that around.
The runner-up would be one of my big underrated sleeper hits of the year, Bomberman Land Touch.
Yes.
From Hudson and brought to us via the U.S. by our wonderful fans or family and friends at Atlas.
Atlas are fast becoming my heroes.
Yeah, Bomberland Land Bomberman. Jeez, I can't get that out.
What is with
Bomberman?
you, man? This isn't even Japanese or anything, dude.
Blah blah blah. No. Bomberman Land Touch is easily one of the most underlooked DS games of the year.
Are you tired over there, Chris, or what?
Yeah, it's getting late. It's basically the Mario Party before Mario Party. I mean, for the DS.
Yes.
If you're looking for a nice prequel to Mario Party DS or have played Mario Party DS, you're going to be anxious enough to want to look this up and check it out. I think it could probably be had rather cheaply these days, if I'm not mistaken. It's been out for about a year now. It came out just under our deadline for awards, and it's a action-packed. We've reviewed it before. Roaming the game land, just looking up mini games, playing through them. It's a great little title. I urge everybody to check it out and be instantly surprised at its pleasure.
Online play, classic play along. Mostly what I play it for is the classic game. We play 3 and 4 person throwdowns on at work. And there's nothing more. I mean, I'll tell you what, the classic game with all the game options and the revenge kills and all that other stuff. If you're a fan of the original Bomberman, I should say, yeah, you definitely want to get in on this because half of the game is what Chris is talking about, the mini games, the adventure piece, and then the other half is a fully realized online multiplayer, bomb fest, and it's absolutely fantastic.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's from Hudson, the same developers who were working with Nintendo on the Mario Party series.
Yes.
And Mario Party DS just recently came out. We'll have a review down the line very soon. But if you loved what you saw in Mario Party and you want more Bomberman Land, it's been out for a while now, and it almost has very similar traits to what they've put in Mario Party DS.
Yes.
You can actually see the way the mini games are laid out, the instructions and so forth. Some of the gameplay quirks and the tweaks they've done is pretty much they just ported it over to Mario Party DS. So check it out. Very, very overlooked, or just nobody checked it out. I think it's I don't know. It's one of my big games though. I was even just playing it last night. I've had it. I've been playing it all year, here and there. Definitely check it out. So,
and it's worth mentioning though is that you got to be very careful with regards to that because there is a regular Bomberman that's out for DS.
Yes.
So if you go shopping, you're going to see Bomberman for like $7 or $8.
Yeah.
It's a decent deal, but you want to go ahead and spend the extra bank and
yeah, because this has that game in it.
Right.
I mean, this actually also includes the original Bomberman. So that's an extra bonus right there. You're getting 2 games in one. You're getting the big mini campaign, mini game extravaganza. You can play with your friends. Tired of that, you can go back and play the old style retro Bomberman. It's actually one of the best versions of Bomberman I think I played as well. I mean, there's a lot of little options to customize what you want to do, how you want to play the settings, and so let's move on. We've already had a review for this. If people want to check it out, they can check it out one of the older shows. I don't have the actual number of the show with me, unfortunately.
Yeah, you think you have that sort of thing. Also, one thing I do want to mention is while you were talking there, Chris, I just took a scan over like Best Buy and whatnot, trying to find how much that thing costs these days. It is OOP, dude. You can't buy it at Best Buy.
Really?
Or Amazon. I've seen it on the shelves at Fry's Electronics if you happen to have one of those.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I thought that's kind of weird because I guess it was a limited run sort of deal.
Well, you know what? It is a Atlas game, and Atlas is very limited.
They are notorious for short runs. Right now it looks like the high price right now. Oh man, I can't believe it. They're going for like $30 on eBay.
Really?
Yeah, it looks like the ones that are closing out are going for like 30 bones.
Wow.
Maybe not.
Well, that just shows you how good of a game it is.
There you go.
Actually, we do have Bomberman Land Touch on Amazon. It is only available though. Yeah, but it looks like it's only available from the the regular the guys that sell, not Amazon themselves.
Yeah.
Bomberman Land 2 is coming out very soon as well. That is available on Amazon.
Yeah, I took a look at I took a look at the import on that one. That's very nice. They've enhanced the original play, the original old school Bomberman with more weapons, all sorts of other cool stuff. So
great, excellent.
We'll keep an eye on that. Moving along.
Yes, big time.
So the number one best mini games of 2007 will be one of my favorite games that I don't think anybody took seriously, Touchmaster. Touchmaster. Okay. For those of you who have not been listening to the show, we've talked about it already, but Touchmaster, if you go to a bar, they have like a PC in a box that has a touch screen. You put a couple of quarters in it, you can play like 25 different, these little mini games. They're knockoff games of like, basically anything that you've seen Pac-Man put out,
Yeah.
They've got a version in there. Touchmaster is an actual tabletop game system that they rewrote and put on the DS. It's got all sorts of absolutely fantastic time killer games. One of the greatest, I think one of the greatest minigame collections of all time, to be perfectly honest with you. I still play it now. Maquis, they've got a version of Yahtzee in there. They've got this, those ones where you have to shoot as many baskets as you can with the basket moving. It's got it all. So
they got a really cool word search in there too. I love the word search.
Yes.
There's 23 games total.
Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile.
The other cool thing is online leaderboards for each of the games. So
it is
big time. We have once again, it's another game that we did review in a prior show. You can get the full load there.
Yep.
So and I think it's one of the recent shows, so I think you can still probably download it.
Yeah, and if you can't download it, of course, you can always buy it on CD. We do. Let me get my shameless plug in here. $14.95 gets you like 70 hours of shows or something like that. No, it was 45 hours of shows. Right. For the first season of Dual Screen Radio. Yeah, Touchmaster's going for a cool $18.99 on Amazon right now. No reason not to have it. That's nothing.
And that's a great game for especially Christmas coming up. That's a great game for your in-law, anybody to play. I mean, anybody can pick it up and just go right for it. You don't need anything crazy to understand. You just, as long as you can hold a pen, you can play this.
You can play it. You're good to go.
Yep. So, well, moving on.
All right.
Another category that was actually very hard to narrow down specific titles for, the best platformer. It's another round of games, another genre that just doesn't really factor in on the DS too much. Now, of course, we've got the king of all platformers on the DS, which is obviously New Super Mario Brothers, but that was already in our show last year. So we are now in a new year. We need a new game. So
that's right. As was Super Princess Peach, which also would have made this list. But again, that was last year. And you know what? Super Princess Peach is still going for $35, man.
Well, it's Nintendo, dude. They don't want to lower their games. They're very.
They don't have to. They make a ton out of them. So, so I'm doing the follow-up this time, right? Or do you want to do the follow-up because it's something you've played more?
I don't know. I mean, okay. The follow-up, the runner-up to the main game this year would be Kirby Squeak Squad, a nice little platforming game that absolutely does nothing on the DS. It's pretty much a straight GBA type port game. It's not using the unique, specific abilities of the DS like its earlier release of Canvas Curse did. Where you had to use the stylus to draw where you want Kirby to go. This is a flat-out D-pad jump and run platformer. There's some minor touchscreen usage for your inventory and whatnot, but overall, it's basically a flat-out GBA port. Yeah. It's still a decent platformer. It's a very easy game. It might be good for a younger child to check out, a younger kid. It's pretty. There's not much going on. It's just run and jump, and it's pretty easy to figure out. Sucking Kirby's abilities. Kirby games have always been kind of hit and miss with me. I'm not really a huge Kirby fan, but this is easily one of the best platformers of the year, and hence will be our runner-up for the platforming category. So take it away. Let them know what is the top platformer of the year.
Top platform of the year is something that you either seem to love or hate, and that's Yoshi's Island DS. Now, this was a very, very coveted title. Everybody was jonesing for this. And when a development house that most people weren't real happy about, was it Artoons, right?
Yeah.
Got the license to do this. A lot of people were kind of pissed off because they have a tendency.
Artoon, originally their big title claim to fame was Blinks, the Time Sweeper on the original Xbox, which absolutely a horrendous game. So a lot of people were kind of like, wait a minute, why are these people touching Yoshi Island for the DS, a sequel to a game that came out, maybe about 15 years ago or so, and is one of the top SNES titles and top platformers of all time.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were pretty upset about that. And, I have to say, it certainly isn't as good as that original title, but it's not as bad as everybody thought it was going to be. I think a lot of people sighed with relief. I think R2 kind of kept things safe and pretty much just kept the mold going. It's pretty much Yoshi with 2 screens and a couple little extra little gameplay bonuses in terms of swapping out different babies, which is pretty cool. I think the dual screen actually kind of messes with you a little bit, because you're not really paying attention a lot of times to what's going on one screen. Since the levels kind of traverse both screens, you're kind of thrown off a little bit. It's not as tight. Some of the animation could have been better. Yoshi running and so forth. There's just a lot of little things that should have been a little more polished in comparison to the original, but it's definitely the top platformer of the year in a genre that's kind of lacking, believe it or not, on the DS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This next year is going to be better. There's a whole bunch of platformers that have come out in our just after our time window for the reviews. Things that I think we'll be able to see a little bit better of. But yeah, definitely Yoshi's Island. I wasn't part of that whole craze. The first time I saw anything Yoshi related was Yoshi Touch and Go, which is still one of my top titles on the DS of all time, period.
Right, and I think that threw everybody off too. When they saw Yoshi Touch and Go, I think that was originally what they thought was going to be the sequel. Yeah. And what they got instead was a straight out scoring arcade title.
Yeah, which works for me, but apparently fans of Yoshi were real pleased with it.
Yeah.
Still one of those games I recommend to everybody to pick up just because it's super cheap, it's very different, and it makes very good use of the touchscreen technology. So check out the original Yoshi Touch and Go, as well as picking up this year's best platformer of 2007, Yoshi's Island DS. Moving along, the next category, Best Brain Game. Now, you'd probably think that with the massive onslaught of brain games for the DS, that this would have been a hard category for us. It wasn't, actually. A lot of the Me Too brain games did not make our first pass list. For us, Brain Age really is the genre-determining game. So everything has to be held up against that. How good is the Sudoku? How good are the puzzles? Everything has to be really, really good in terms of being able to match Brain Age to begin with.
Well, you figure, Brain Age basically created the category. So,
a brain game, yeah.
And who's the best to supplant that game but Nintendo themselves? I mean, they've created the genre, or at least on the DS. I mean, there's been games like this before, but for something on the DS, it really took it to a next level. And obviously, somebody like Mastiff or Majesco or THQ is certainly not going to one-up Nintendo.
Ain't going to happen.
In a genre that they pretty much created on this system.
Yes.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So the runner-up for the best brain game of 2007, believe it or not, is this was hard. The runner-up was Quick Spots. Yeah, very cool game that gives you images and you have to find what's different between them. Huge fun. My wife was glued to that game for hours and hours. Or weren't we all?
Yeah, I have the import. I mean, I had the import back when, and I mean, it was all in Japanese, but it was pretty easy to play.
Yeah, look at the 2 screens.
Right. You look at the screens, you get different pictures. What's cool is it's a Namco Bandai game or whatever, and they get a lot of Namco IP dispersed through the images, so it's kind of neat. I mean, on one level you'll have Mr. Driller, or you'll have Taiko Drum Master, lots of little nods like Dig Dug, Xevious. So you got to match the screens, you got to circle the differences. Lots of little game modes. You're all timed, and then of course it tries to compile all the information based on your reflexes, your quickness, your exactness in terms of picking out the differences and how you've done it. And it will go and show you your brain age, so to speak, based on that, which is kind of a bunch of nonsense. But hey, whatever, it works. The game's a lot of fun. It can be had for under $20, $19.99. Might want to check it out. Some cool stuff, especially if you're a Namco slut like myself. I love Namco stuff. So, like I said, I had the import way back then. And if you do like the game, there is a sequel out in Japan, and it is very easy to play. I mean, outside of just putting in your blood type, which seems to be in a lot of Japanese games these days. I don't understand that. And choosing if you're a male or female. It's pretty easy through the menus. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can drown you if you're female. Okay.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell them the top brain game.
Oh, actually, you get that honor this time. I did the last one.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did
Chris,
quick
tell us the number one title, the number one brain game for 2007. I know it's going to be tough.
Elf Bowling 1 and 2.
I knew it was going to come in there.
Yeah, you have to use your brain to decide if you want to buy it or not.
You have to use your brain to decide how to find the receipt to take that crap back. That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I knew that the Elf Bowling curse was going to be hit at least some point.
That was for you, Flair. That was for you,
That was
Flair.
for you. That was for you, Fernando. That was it for you. Okay, give it to us, man. Number one.
Yes. Okay. Brain Age 2 is the top brain game of the year, which
Duh.
in case yeah, everybody kind of saw that one coming. It's the same game pretty much brought up to more of the same puzzles, more of the same Sudoku, but you know what? We love the original so much. Why couldn't we have chosen the sequel, this year? So it was kind of a no-brainer. No pun intended.
You're a funny guy. I like you, silly. I kill you last. The honorable mention in this category goes to Platinum Sudoku. There was like 7 billion Sudoku games that came out after Brain Age, and believe it or not, we tried them all to make sure you didn't get screwed. And the only one that even came close, that even remotely touched Brain Age 2, was Platinum Sudoku. And I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a pure Sudoku title, it's from Ubisoft, and it includes Kakuro, whatever. That's that weird-ass number game.
I think it's Kakuro.
Kakuro.
Yeah, I think that's where you involve letters or something.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it's a very solid Sudoku title. It was close for the runner-up, but we wanted to make sure it got an honorable mention because it's definitely worth taking a look at this 2007 year.
Plus, I think it's a cheapy title as well.
Yes, that's right. Cheapy title. It's $19.99 on Amazon, so life's good.
Yeah, that looks good.
Life is
good stocking stuffer.
Good stocking stuffer. Moving
Next
along.
category.
Go for it, Chris.
Best old school game. Because we have to have an old school game in there because we're old school gamers.
We are old school gamers. You would expect nothing less from us than to have a best old school game.
Yeah, a little cross promotion with the RGR there.
Yeah, little retrogamingradio.com is the sister show to this show that I run.
Dualscreenradio.com, yes.
Yeah, go to dualscreenradio.com because apparently we don't say the website enough for you podcasters out there. They don't bother to come to the site to get the show. I'm sorry. I'm just a little bitter. I got one of those, why don't you podcast Retro Gaming Radio so I don't have to come to the site? I got one of those, 2 days ago, and I'm kind of miffed about it.
Make it easy for me. I'm doing this for you.
Yeah.
I'm listening to your show. You can at least make it easy for me.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so why don't you give the runner-up, and then I will give
Okay, the runner-up for the best old school game. And we've had quite a few classic, stuff coming out in the past year. Namco Museum, Konami Classics, Contra 4. Contra 4. That is our runner-up for the old school category. A game which has been long in the running for coming out. And where did it appear? On the Nintendo DS.
That's right. That's right. Now, I kind of missed the Contra generation. I was back playing on the Amiga back then, so I'm not really one to get in there. But I tell you, it's very solid. It's very clean.
Man, I don't know. Contra and Contra 2, Super Contra, they were out in the arcade right alongside Top Gunner. So, I can't say you missed it.
Yeah.
Contra was, that's classic gaming, dude.
That's right.
Now, I guess you're thinking about the NES and Super NES versions of the games, which are actually superior than the arcade versions. But
yeah.
Contra 4 does everything correct, does everything right. It takes a lot of cues from the classic arcade versions. Actually, the first level feels like it's straight out of the original Contra,
I noticed that
going on.
Yeah.
The game is side-splittingly hard, which is well known for the Contra series. Okay, so this isn't for the short of breath and the weak of heart. The game is very difficult, even on the normal level. It's a difficult game. It's going to treat you like a hardcore player. But the game just, it completely entitles everything about, Contra, especially Super Nintendo Contra. I would want to say this is a straight out sequel to that title more than anything. So,
we did make a small mistake on Contra 4. You know that? I just realized.
We did?
It came out November 13th, so it did miss our November 1st window. So it is not going to be eligible for next year. for best any of our awards next year. That I think is our only mess up, though. I've been looking ahead, trying to make sure that we didn't mess this up. But yes, so but still, yeah, that works for me.
All right. Well, hey, I mean, whatever. It's still a good game. It's got to be in there. And you know, it did come out in 07, so whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Okay, the number one best old school game, and I should be the one to tell you this as the host of Retro Gaming Radio.
Richard.com. Yes.
RetroGamingRadio.com. Let's see how many times I can get that in there. Of course, the best old school game, and this is anybody who's got a DS that knows old school game knows what the answer to this one is. The number one title, of course, Konami's classic series, the arcade hits.
Fantastic
this is
little collection.
Outstanding. It was 11 games, fantastic game. Shaolin's Road, Time Pilot, absolutely stunning. The only thing that could have made that better was like online leaderboards, but I don't even care. It's that good. All the good games. We've done reviews on it.
You know what? The thing is, it saves your high score. That alone is
yes.
That works for me. And you can trade your high scores back and forth.
You can. Yeah. If you can go near somebody and trade your scores over. So
who actually has the game, right?
Yeah. And the night that was really cool though. You can actually send demos or playable versions of any of these games over to somebody else, and I love that. That got mad prompts in our review. The game does not cut any corners. They went all the way. They gave you dip switches to set for the games. They gave you, you can even get this, and I actually got around to trying this finally. How wacky is this? You can actually set two DSs up, and I'm not sure who was smoking what when they came up with this. You can download, Japan, so. Yeah, you can download you can download the game itself to another DS. Try to follow me on this one. And play it on the DS screen that it's loaded on from another DS, using the DS as a control panel. So you can have one DS sitting up at eye level, like on a table or a counter or something, sitting in a chair with your hands under the table on another DS, playing the game while you're watching it on a different DS.
How cool is it?
It was cool, but it's like, I'm not sure I'd ever do this, but it's really cool that somebody came up with that. I think what they were thinking about was that at some point in time, maybe there was going to be a TV out adapter for the DS or something.
Yeah.
And then you could basically sit back in your chair with one DS and beam your controls to the DS to the TV or something. I don't know.
Right. And I think the only drawback for me with this game is, frankly, I wanted more games. I mean,
we always want more games, though.
I mean, I mean, Gyrus needed to be in there.
Yeah, Gyrus needed to be in there big time. Or they need to come out with a series, too. I'm good with that. I will gladly plunk down more money for more games because it's done that well.
Yeah.
So that's our number one old school game. All right, moving along. The next category is most innovative use of the DS. What is the most innovative game on the DS? When we say most innovative,
for 2007.
For 2007, what games used the microphone, used the touchscreen, brought some new innovation of gameplay to light? Chris, let us know.
Legend of Zelda: The Phantom Hourglass.
That's right, Chris.
Well, I mean, we're going to have a review coming up, so I don't want to discuss it too much. But, some of the things that we do in the game, you get to do, the way the whole game is played via the stylus, they really did pull it off.
Yeah, and we really thought that wasn't going to work.
Exactly. There was a lot of lead up to a lot of people saying, was this going to work? I really wish there was a D-pad option. The stylus, this is no way this is going to work. How is this going to? And I have to say, they did pull it off. Now, obviously, for 100, not everybody's gonna agree with that, but I think they did a damn good job. I mean, they did pull it off. It does work. You can play the game. There's a couple little problems, but I'll mention them in the review. We'll
talk about it. Let's move on. Now, this is a category best suited to the Nintendo DS, best casual game. And believe it or not, this is one of those ones we managed to eliminate a lot of the contenders right off the bat and come up with 3 or 4 of our absolute favorites. But of course, there could only be one winner and one runner-up. And Chris, do you want me to? I play more of the runner-up than you do, right? Perhaps I should announce the runner-up.
I played a lot of it, but I'm just not. Go ahead. You go ahead and do the runner-up.
All right.
Because you did the main. Go ahead. Just do the runner-up.
Oh yeah. I'm going to do the runner-up. Yes, it'll work out. The runner-up for best casual game, believe it or not, this is another one of those games that people are going to go, oh, that's on the DS? I never knew that. And that is the New York Times Crosswords. This is a game that I actually had to get on the day, like not even the day of the release, but like several days after the release of the game. I had to go to Best Buy. Here's a little story time for you. I think I'd mentioned it though on one of the other shows. I went to Best Buy and said, hey, the online says you've got 5 copies of New York Times Crosswords. I'd like to buy one. Not to be found anywhere. He had to go to the back in some box or something and dig the copies out. They weren't even on the shelf yet.
So this is Best Buy.
This is Best Buy, you know.
Well, yeah, that's typical for them. So
yeah. And I didn't see it spring up in any other stores for quite some time. And New York Times Crosswords, if you are looking for crossword puzzles, this is it. I mean, 5 years worth of puzzles, every single day's puzzle.
Yeah.
It's got multiplayer mode. It's got all sorts of different challenges. It's got
and the writing recognition. The writing recognition is very good on it.
It's outstanding.
It is a lot of people.
Fantastic game.
I mean, this is a good casual game because who hasn't played a crossword at some point in their life? I mean,
everybody knows how to play crossword puzzles.
This is a good game to give to people who like crossword puzzles. Now, of course, you're going to get the old fogies who are going to say, well, I can play the crossword for free every day in my daily newspaper. Well, that's fine, but you also have to hold up this big piece of paper. You have to fold the newspaper over. You got your hands all black and white. You got to sit and use a pen. You make a mistake, what are you going to do? You
have to
use a pencil.
And then you have to wait for the next
on a subway
solution, you know.
Right. And then you're on the subway or something, or on a bus. You know, how are you going to sit and do this thing? You can't. Or it's going to be difficult anyway. I mean, I'm sure some people are skillful enough to do it, but you know, for something like this, it's on the DS. Everything's nice and all together. And hey, say you got your bus stops here. You just close the lid, put it in suspend mode, and move along. I mean,
it's even got cooperative and versus multiplayer for single card download. It's fantastic. It almost would have made the number 1 slot, but another title knocked it down. Chris, what is the number 1 title for best casual game of 2007?
Our first repeat of the series so far.
Yes.
Of our awards show would be Touchmaster.
Yes.
It's a game, as we said, everybody can get into. There's a game in here for everybody to play. 23 games total. Rewind the show if you want to hear more about it.
Yeah, card games, the whole works. Yeah, you got it all. Best original game. Now, just so you guys understand what best original game means, this means no famous IP, no name whoring, no Galaga DS, none of that, no sequels, no Brothers in Arms 2. This is something that came out this year of its own IP, didn't steal a name from anybody. What is the runner-up for the best?
By the way, I'd like to point out, just for the younger kids who may not know what an IP is, is intellectual property.
Yeah.
So that pretty much is anytime you get something like Star Wars or Star Trek. Say you go to the supermarket, okay, and you go into the aisle for bathroom supplies, and you see a set of Dixie cups. Right. And the Dixie cups have SpongeBob SquarePants on it.
Right.
Well, the Dixie cups are one thing that you need for your bathroom if you want to brush your teeth or rinse your mouth.
Right.
But they got SpongeBob on them. SpongeBob being on those Dixie cups would be Dixie cups with an IP, an intellectual property. Yeah. So it's something there to sell you on the product based on what is on the product.
That's right.
So,
a popular character, a mascot, Mario, is an intellectual IP of Nintendo. I don't know why we keep getting people posting about that. It's like, what's an IP? It's like, well,
a lot of kids may not know what that is. Or
that's fair enough. Fair enough.
So, and you see the word a lot. You see the lingo a lot in the world, So, Zelda, that's an IP. I mean, Mario is an IP, things like that. Anything that's marketed, outside its main genre. I mean, obviously, like something like Mario. I mean, you got plushies, you got posters, you got, he's selling, he has his own cereal for crying out loud. So
that's right.
Anyway, that's the kind of game we have here. Games that aren't built upon that kind of structure.
That's
so,
right. What's the runner-up?
What's the runner-up? The runner-up would be Dementium the Ward.
Yeah,
which
this
is
is a game that came out.
A newer title released in the last couple months. We're going to have a review in this show, so we're not going to say much about it now. But it's a completely original title to the DS, and I feel one of the better games of the year. So
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree. Horror survival, we're going to cover it, as Chris mentioned, in detail. But, yes, that is by far one of the best original games. And of course, one of Chris's favorite games. I learned to appreciate a whole new genre of music thanks to this game. The number one best original game.
Maybe not this particular game, but we get what you're talking about.
Yes, of course, would be Elite Beat Agents, which is, by the way, now one of the most hoard games of all time, I think now. It's going to be right up there with Pac-Man. Every game has a Elite Beat Agents knockoff in it. That new Hannah Montana game, I think, has it.
Happy Feet.
High School Musical, Happy Feet. Everybody stole.
Even the new Raving Rabbids 2 has a little mini game with Celebration in it. Have you seen that?
I have. I did indeed. So Elite Beat Agents, of course, was made is a Englishified version of say it for me, Chris. You know this better than I do.
Wenden?
Well, yeah. Ostu.
I'm not even gonna. It's too late for me to. Aso Tatake Wenden.
Yeah, there you. That's actually
it's too late for me to do that right now.
That was really good, actually. I'm impressed with that. Yeah, that's it's a really cool rhythm game. It's very quirky. It's amazing, and it definitely deserved the best original game of the year. Yeah. So, and we've reviewed it. We've already reviewed that on one of the previous shows.
Oh yes, it's a great game. Best original title, and like it technically could be a sequel, but then again, it's an American release. You know, I can't really say, I
wouldn't call that a sequel.
Well, it's built upon a game that's already existing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it is an original title for the DS. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
moving along. Best, I don't know how we got into that corner. Best strategy game. Now, all of you people that are big into that turn-based stuff, I'm not into it, and I don't know if Chris is into it.
Like Advance Wars?
Yeah, like the Advance Wars stuff in the
I'm a
Anna series, and
I'm not a huge fan, but I gotta say I was hooked pretty hard on the Fire Emblem series on the GBA. I'm not a big fan. I do not like it on the Wii or the GameCube. I like it on the GBA. It's a nice portable strategy game. Yeah. So on there it works for me to a point. Although I never actually finished the games, I always got, I think, about maybe 55-70% through the games, and then I kind of lost track of them.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as I've gone. A little bit of Advance Wars, but eh.
So I'm going to go ahead and give the follow-up on this one. The best strategy game, 2007, the runner-up, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Justice for All. Mm-hmm. I wish I could even begin to paint a picture as to how popular this series is.
Big time.
It is unbelievably popular. Every game is just a little bit better than the one before it. And number 4 is coming out here this next year, where they're going to take a break from the Phoenix Wright character. It is a courtroom drama slant, crime.
Adventure.
Yeah, it's not for me, but I definitely recognize it as being the runner-up of the best strategy game.
Oh yeah. It's got a huge fan following, and for a reason. I mean, the writing is very well done. It's very witty. Considering it's from Japan, I mean, it actually translated over very well. So, and it was a long-running series back on the GBA that we're now going to be getting an original DS-only title coming up very soon. So that'll be pretty interesting to see how that pans out. Personally, for me, I can't seem to get through these games. I start a couple, I get through maybe the first one or two little
cases.
Cases, that's it. Yeah. And I kind of just bomb out and I move on to something else. I guess I have ADD.
Maybe you do. My wife plays them until she's done. I mean, you can't pry her from the chair. She's insane for them. So, definitely up there. Now, Chris, why don't you give us the number 1 best strategy game of 2007?
Puzzle Quest Challenge of the Warlords.
Yes, as if there was any shocker what was going to be the best strategy game.
Another repeat offender.
Another repeat offender. Puzzle Quest gets another of the coveted DSR awards for 2007. Yes, we've busted Puzzle Quest down to a science. I do want to give Hotel Dusk Room 215 a nod as a as an honorable mention. I thought that, well, it was kind of an adventure game. It was really a strategy type scenario. So I definitely wanted to mention that. Moving on to one of the most coveted categories here, which is going to probably surprise a few people and piss a few people off, but sorry, we're going to do it our way. Best playing game. Best role-playing game 2007. Chris, give us the runner-up.
Runner-up is a game that sucked the very life out of my soul this past year, and I've completed to the very end. Final Fantasy III.
Yes, and coming from a guy, me, who absolutely despises console-based versions of Final Fantasy, I loved Final Fantasy III.
Well, for some reason, it's also. Yeah, same here. And the thing that drives me crazy is outside Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, which was basically just a hyped up game for me. I checked it out. It was, at the time, it was kind of one of those things like, yeah, this looks pretty interesting, but ultimately bored me. This is the first Final Fantasy game I've actually ever completed because, and we've already discussed this ad nauseum in our review, but to me, a Final Fantasy game, whenever I tried them, have just always been somewhat of a downgrade for me in terms of depth and storyline and what you can do. You know, everything just seemed kind of dumbed down and watered down for me compared to the old Commodore classic RPGs such as the D&D Gold Box or even Ultima, you know, or Legacy of the Nations. Yes.
Yeah,
so
we had to get that in somewhere.
I had to. But ultimately, this game was a great little portable RPG, and I had a blast with it. I think it took me about 26 something hours to complete or something like that. But a lot of fun. I saw it through to the end, and I'm anxiously awaiting the Final Fantasy IV remake, which already looks amazing. So can't wait for that to see. Maybe that'll be next year's big hit.
Yeah. And
so give us what the number one RPG is, and the RPG which really has been sucking our life away, even beyond Final Fantasy.
Yes.
Still, yes.
And I'm going to tell you what it is not. It is not Orcs and Elves. Sorry. Yeah. It is not Legend of Zelda, which is going to piss a couple people off. It's not the Pokemon Diamond Pearl, which is going to piss even more people off.
Now, if everybody wants to take a second guess real quick, I mean, that would be pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, take a few moments, think in your mind, what could we be talking about? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice.
Go ahead.
I'll do the whole thing.
Thank you. No, sorry.
The number one
playing
game, and this, this is not going to sit well with everybody, but Etrian Odyssey is by far one of my favorite role-playing games of all time. It has all of the old school charm with excellent combat, excellent dungeon layouts, excellent quests. The whole game is just stellar.
See, for me, this is a true RPG.
Absolutely. None of this watch 20 minutes of video, fight some random battle, watch another 20 minutes of video. This is
or read freaking War and Peace before and after a battle.
Yeah, I want party management. I want lots of classes. I want lots of different spell classes. I want to be able to cross train my players. This has it all.
I want tons of equipment.
I want equipment coming out my bunghole.
I want big shoulder pads.
Yes, that's right. I want cool spell effects. I want it all. And guess what? Etrian Odyssey hooked me up. Now, don't let the drawing of your own map turn you off, people. That's part of the fun. I know you guys that aren't like over 20 don't understand what it was like in the old school days to make your own maps. But there's a graph paper and a piece of a pencil.
Dungeon. Excuse me, not dungeon. Basement.
That's right. Mommy's Dungeon. That's great. But anyway, Etrian Odyssey, of course, we've also discussed ad nauseum on the show. Suffice to say, RPG game of the year. No two ways about it for me.
No doubt.
Last category, Chris.
It's been a long road, but we're finally here. The game of the year for Dual Screen Radio 2007.
That's right, and I'm wondering if people would like to hear the two runners up we don't really have a runners up. There's only one game that can make it, but we had a couple.
I don't even think we should bother with the runners up personally. I think we should just give it to them.
Give it to them.
Go for it.
3, 2, 1. Puzzle Quest.
Challenge
of the Warlords. That's right, folks. The best game you can put on your DS for 2007. Puzzle Quest Challenge of the Warlords. We've already gushed over it enough. It was a clean sweep this time. I think Puzzle Quest got, 3 awards this year?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Let's see. 1, 2,
3 awards, the top awarded game of the Dual Screen Radio 2007 awards, and our game of the year. Wow. I'll tell you what, I still play it.
No, me too. I've bought it twice.
Yeah, I bought it several times, actually.
I have it on the 360 and I have it on the DS. So,
yep, I think I bought an extra copy for my wife or my kids. So I've had several. Yeah, for the other butt cheek. And it's good to know, I think on the last time when we reviewed it, this is something actually new from our review. The last time we reviewed it, it was in short supply. The game was very hard to find. People were eBaying it for $40-50. Since then, there has been a second shipment. The game is now plentiful. So if you've been holding off, waiting and not paying $40 for it, it is on the shelves everywhere.
Look, you know what, dude? It is on Amazon as we speak.
Yes.
Okay, and we just make sure it ships from Amazon, $19.99.
It's a no-brainer.
$20 will buy you one of the most in-depth puzzle RPG strategy games for the DS that you could ever play.
Yeah,
and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, if you don't have it yet, it is crucial to have in your DS library.
The game of the year is only $20, folks. If you do not have it, I highly recommend you check it out.
Pick it up. You're gonna love it.
Even if you don't have a DS, check it out on any of the other platforms it's on.
It's worth it. It's worth it. All right. Well, heck, man, we got through all the awards, and we've still got so much to talk about.
Oh, my goodness.
What an exciting show. Well, shall we slide into doing some mini reviews?
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Of course you're entertained. Let's do it, Chris. We have 4 titles for you this month we want to talk about. The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, Dementium The Ward, Jewel Quest, and the Namco arcade.
Museum DS.
Yeah, Namco Museum DS. Chris, want to start with Zelda?
Yeah. Well, how far did you get in Zelda? Did you actually complete the game?
Oh, hell no. I'm afraid.
Yeah, you haven't even made it through a Twilight Princess, right?
No, I didn't even make it through that. So I am not a huge Zelda person.
Zelda was kind of beyond Shane at the time. He was still in his Commodore 64
I was doing Commodore 64 RPGs.
As was I, actually. I was also doing Commodore 64 RPGs. Actually, to me, the Nintendo Entertainment System was a big downgrade originally for me. And it's still not my, the Commodore is still my Desert Island system. But Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda, was the big game which kind of converted me over to the Nintendo Entertainment System. I guess maybe because it was a gold cartridge, I don't know, something kind of made me say, hey, this game looks special. It has a gold cartridge. It has to be something special. And it was one of the first games I had gotten. I got it for Christmas along with my system. This was back in, 86? Christmas 86. And it is easily one of my top 10 favorite games of all time. The original Legend of Zelda is one of my top favorite games of all time, which is nothing to sneeze at because it's probably one of the only, if one of the few Nintendo games on that list, if maybe not the only one. So anyway, over the years, I've been a big Zelda fan. I've played through the Adventure of Link, which obviously threw me off, which it threw off a lot of people because it took a different perspective to what we expected a Zelda sequel to be. We went on to the Super Nintendo Link to the Past, which was a phenomenal title. The original Rainstorm at the beginning of the game is one of my top 10 gaming moments, just in terms of ambience and surrounding, just everything about it just blew me away with the Rainstorm. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I know in the time it came out, what was that, 92 or so, it just blew me away. That was a cool little intro. And then from that point, we moved on to, we had the Game Boy Zelda, which I had a lot of fun with. It just pretty much brought home the original Zelda in a little portable handheld format. Not a brilliant game. And from that point, we moved on to the Nintendo 64 Ocarina of Time, which, believe it or not, for me is not one of the best games ever made. Now, a lot of people are going to be pissed off at me for saying that, but I made it through halfway through the game, and I had to turn it off. I could not adapt to the 3D play of Zelda. It just did not work for me. And I have to say it was very disappointing to me. And even now it has not aged well, in my opinion. And the graphics look horrendous. I mean, I'm not a graphics whore, so to speak, but I can pick up something like Link to the Past or even the original Zelda, and I could fit right at home with me. I mean, I pick it up and it fits like a glove, and I'm ready to go. Ocarina of Time just looks worse and worse, and even at the time I thought it looked terrible, and it just does not do it for me. I mean, some of the music's nice. The gameplay, the automatic jumping and whatnot, I just didn't feel like I was in control of the player. I can't put my finger on it. I really can't. People are going to be burning me at the stake for it, but it is not one of my favorite games of all time. And as a Zelda fan, it kind of turned me off. Flashing ahead a little bit, and this is really going to relate more into our review. And for the record, I loved Twilight Princess. I can't explain it. To me, it was basically Ocarina of Time brought up to a next level, and for me, that worked. That was the only 3D Zelda that really gelled with me. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beautiful game, and it worked great. The one game in the Zelda series, which I feel is one of the worst, is the Wind Waker. I absolutely abhorred Wind Waker. And it wasn't because of the artistic change in terms of everything being more cartoony and just more kiddish and more childish. I actually thought the animation was brilliant. I loved it. But unfortunately, the game itself just kind of took a nosedive for me. The whole boating thing, it was boring. I think the number one problem with the Wind Waker and the one problem with Phantom Hourglass, because for all intents and purposes, Phantom Hourglass is a sequel to the Wind Waker. It pretty much picks up right after where Wind Waker ended, and you're supplanted right into the DS version of Phantom Hourglass. And I think the number one flaw for me between Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass is that Zelda no longer became a game of exploration. The original Zelda was pretty much wander around, do whatever you want, without any say in terms of what cave should I go in first or where do I have to go. There was no hand holding. You know what I mean? There was nothing there to say you have to go here. There was not a guy saying, okay, you got this, now go here. There was nothing to drag you to the next position in the game, point to point to point. It was this big overworld for you I mean, at the time it was amazing. I mean, I don't remember how many screens it was comprised of. It was at least 30-something screens. And I remember seeing the map, and outside of Ultima, big cloth map in Ultima, I've never been, so overwhelmed by a game at that point. Yeah. And, and all the little nooks and crannies. And I know you probably haven't really played the original Zelda, but to me, Phantom Hourglass is lacking in the key thing that makes Zelda great to me, and that's the overworld exploration. And just that, here's a cave, I'm going to go into the dungeon, and then I could come out and say, well, you know what, maybe I don't want to explore that dungeon anymore. I think I'll go around here and check around for some hidden things, bomb this mountain, pick out a heart. Something that is severely lacking in Phantom Hourglass, and what I feel brings it down for me a lot. It just doesn't have that roam where you want to go kind of feel. This is too much, okay, you have this, now you have to go back here kind of gameplay. The basis of the game is, once again, you're trying to save Zelda. Right after Wind Waker, she's already getting herself into trouble. So sure enough, you're landing, you're on this island, you do the same type of stuff you do in a Zelda game. What's the first thing you do? You get your sword. You go in, you collect your sword, you collect your shield. You're pretty much going through, the grind, the same old grind that you expect with any old Zelda game. It's, for all intents and purposes, the same exact formula from the very first Zelda game, only brought up a notch in terms of graphics and gameplay and puzzles for the dungeons and so forth. But like I said, it's lacking that one key thing, which is exploration, which to me was the big thing for me for Zelda. One other thing I'm not real thrilled with was the lack of dungeons. So, if you've ever played a Zelda game, you pretty much know what to expect here. It's Zelda on the DS. The DS is a little reincarnation for Zelda. Pretty much every system got a Zelda game, except for the Virtual Boy, of course. So if you're a Zelda fan, you've probably already bought it. If you're not a Zelda fan, I don't want to say this is probably the best game to start with. I think the touch controls definitely get some getting used to. They are very well done. Point and click, tap. Moving Link around is very similar to how you would control the character in Bomberman Land or Animal Crossing. If you controlled Animal Crossing with the stylus, you're not too far off of how Link would control. The closer you hold your stylus to Link, the more slow he's going to run or walk, and the further away from your stylus you hold, he's going to run. The touch play is not flawless. I found that the hardest thing you could possibly do is to do the little rolls that Link will do, to crush rocks or to kind of give enemies a little bit of a dizzy spell. It's very hard to pull that off. It's a little swish on the side of the screen. Especially when you have not much room to move, it can be very difficult to pull off. Otherwise, the action moves, the slashing of the sword, it's very well done. Just the stroke of the screen. Touching an enemy will automatically jump you to that enemy and slash them, which is pretty much a brain dead feature in my opinion. It kind of takes a little bit of the challenge. You walk into a room, touch, dead. You killed your enemies. Collect the key, move on. The other cool move, and something from A Link to the Past, which has been in every game pretty much since then, is the ability to do a super spin move with the sword. So you just do a little circular motion, and Link will spin himself crazy, which will result in you being a little dizzy afterwards. Cool little moves. Ultimately, I know Shane is a big fan of this. The one cool thing about it, I right off the bat that struck me was the ability to use the boomerang.
Oh yeah.
The touch screen just really added a whole new strategy, a whole new gameplay feature to the boomerang. No more are you just kind of clicking in a direction and hitting a button to throw the boomerang. Well, and this is great because you get the boomerang fairly early in the game, which is pretty much what you get in the other Zelda games. It was the first accessory you picked up in the original Zelda. What's great is now you have the ability, you can select the boomerang, and this is one of the few things that you don't need to use the touch screen for. Item selection can be done with the shoulder buttons. So it's really easy to flick and create a favorite for your shoulder button to drag it up into your little block. So you have a hot trigger, what would they call that? A hot button?
Hotkey, yeah.
Hotkey, yeah, that's it. A hotkey for the boomerang or the bomb or the shovel, whatever accessory you pick up in the game. So you select your boomerang using the left shoulder button. You can tap it. Now the cool thing is, Link will now hold the boomerang in his hand. And taking the stylus, you can draw, and you're limited to what's on the screen, but you can draw a flight path for that boomerang to take. So what's neat is this adds some really cool puzzle elements to the game, something that Zelda needs. I mean, there's so many Zelda games. There always is going to be a need to bring that up a notch in terms of the puzzle play. So what's cool is if you have a little trigger that you need to hit just outside the screen, say there's an obstruction that you can't jump, but your boomerang can fly over. You can draw a flight path to that switch for the boomerang to hit, which will then in turn open that door and give you the little music. So that is one thing right off the bat that's going to blow you away with this game, and it's really cool that they kind of brought it in early on. Another cool thing that's been added is the fact that when you do have a map screen on your top screen, you can switch to the bottom screen, flip it back and forth, and draw on the screen where little things should go, little hints or clues that you may get in the game. I know there's little things here and there where it's going to tell you to hit something in a specific order, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could bring that map down to your touch screen and easily input it when the stylus 1, 2, 3, 4. That way you can remember it later on when you get to that point in the game and easily succeed in solving the puzzle. Or you could just put, hey, there's a treasure chest here, draw a little dot. It's sort of similar to what you could do in Entry and Odyssey, except you have full-on text, writing in this. You can write whatever you want on the screen to kind of alert you to something that you may have missed before. You put a little question mark. Very, very cool little features. Other than that, one thing and this goes back to what I was originally saying, the one thing that's bothering me about this game, there really isn't an overworld. Now, people will sit and say, well, the overworld's just not an overworld, so to speak. It's an over ocean, in that you have to have a boat and you run around the ocean. Well, the problem is, it all looks the same. You have a big ocean, and there's only so much you can do in an ocean to make it interesting.
Right.
You can have little islands here. Okay, boom, boom. You go there, get a little secret. but it just does not take the place. It does not fulfill your need for a big overworld that expands as you move screen to screen. You know, Twilight Princess even had one. That's the latest game to have one. You know, in terms of you just had like a free roaming feel that you could go anywhere and do anything you want and come back to it later. And, you know, in one turn you may not be able to do this, but you can come back to it later. I know in the original Zelda, you know, at the very eastern shoreline on the coast, there was this little, you know, it was a plank of wood with a heart container on it. Now, as you know, in a Zelda game, a heart container is a precious thing. It's like one of the ultimate items you can achieve, because it gives you that extra bit of HP, that little bit of health to get you through the game. So what was great is you had this heart container right from the onset, and you're thinking, wow, there's a heart container, and I just started the game. The problem is you can't get to it because it's interrupted water, and you can't swim, and since you can't drop into the water in the original Zelda, you're sitting there thinking, oh, how am I going to get that? How am I going to get that? It's not something you can do right away. So it leaves that whole exploring option open to you. How am I going to get to that? Meanwhile, you'll find something else. You know, how am I going to get that shield, that extra shield? Where am I going to get the money for that? A lot of that stuff's just kind of not there in this game. And that's just something that was very negative to me. And I think ultimately it just kind of bored me. I mean, I'm sitting there being handheld through this game to complete a mission and going back. And the lack of dungeons so far is really kind of irking me. What you can do in the dungeons is brilliant. You know, from blowing on the microphone to you know, making these little windmill things spin to open up another door to a dungeon. You know, to blowing in the microphone, to using the stylus to use your boomerang, and you get a shovel, you can dig up things. These are little things that have always been in Zelda, but they're incorporated into a new way. Just, I guess you could dare say, a gimmicky way. But then again, you're using the DS. If you're using the DS and you're having a lot of fun to you, it's not a gimmick. It's a new way to play a game. It's a new way to interact with a similar gameplay method. And that's pretty much what the Zelda game is doing. Bringing these new controls to the Zelda world and just bringing it up a notch, a little bit here, a little bit there. Overall, it's the same sort of Zelda formula. And if you're a fan of the game, you're going to enjoy it. I'm a fan of the series. It just didn't strike me as good as it could have been. And I think it has to do with a lot of the ocean travel being the overworld. There's just a lot of the mystery is not relevant. There's a lot of dead space on that ocean. And it's to the point where they actually added some battle sequences. I mean, you have a cannon on your boat. You don't even directly move your boat. You're planning a flight path or a traversing path through the ocean, sort of like what you did in Star Fox Command for the DS. Right. Yeah. You plotted out your course ahead of time, hit the launch button, and your boat will follow that, much like your ships did in the original DS version of Star Fox. So for me, that kind of took me out of the game a little bit. It almost felt like Nintendo said to themselves, while people are moving their boat from this path to this or along this path from point A to point B, they need something to do. So let's throw some enemies in there, and we'll give them a cannon. They can touch on the enemies to shoot them with the cannon. It doesn't work. Okay, it's gonna throw your mind off things for a little bit, but ultimately you can tell they just threw it in there as something extra to not bore you as you traverse this ocean. And it was just a little lacking in that sense. What was you going to say there?
Filler. It's filler.
Filler, yes. Yeah. It is. And instead of having this big overworld for you to explore, you know, where you're running around or on a horse, you're not, you know, on a Epona like you are in Twilight Princess or Ocarina of Time. Twilight Princess, I was roaming back and forth all over the place throughout the entire game between dungeons, just looking for all these little secrets and bombing caves. You get none of that in this game. You're going to find an island once in a while. You're going to find some treasure. Eventually you get parts for your ship. And at that point it becomes almost like a Pokemon type of thing. Got to catch them all. You got to catch all the parts for your ship. The problem is they don't really add a whole lot to your ship, especially since you have no real control over where your ship wants to go. You can plot a course and you can stop it at any time and redirect the course, but it's just not there. It doesn't connect with you. And adding these little parts to the ship is even more filler to it's almost like something to kind of lengthen the gameplay. because for all intents and purposes, this is not a long adventure either. It's a fairly short game. The graphics are phenomenal, which is a given. I mean, what Nintendo first party, especially Zelda, it's their big IP, doesn't have good graphics. So that's kind of an expected thing. And the way they did the animation, it looks brilliant. But I think the gameplay is severely lacking. I think you can tell that they've kind of hit a little bit of a wall with this game. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why it took so long for it to come out. I mean, I remember this game was being shown back when. I mean, this was being shown back in late of 2005. And it's only now 2 years later that we're finally getting anything, we're finally getting the game. I know the game was scrapped. Lots of little things were taken out or added. And a lot of the boat stuff, even early on, it didn't get very good word of mouth. I mean, because a lot of people didn't care for it in the original Wind Waker games. So, you get a little bit more of that here. And considering Wind Waker is not one of my favorite Zelda games, it's actually, I couldn't stand it, to be honest with you. But this game's a little bit better. I think it's because the DS adds to the with the stylus and the little things here and there. It's a solid game. It's a good game. Heck, it got our Innovative Game of the Year award, for crying out loud. As a Zelda fan, you're going to probably be on the fence with it, though. So you need that warning ahead of time. Another irk with the game, and I'm trying to show all the irks because mostly it's a pretty solid game. It's a good game. But once you completed a dungeon, you have one other dungeon you go back to. And every single time you come back, you have to replay, unless you have the items to shortcut you through the little parts, you actually have to replay the same freaking dungeon again and again and again. But every time you play, you get deeper and deeper into the dungeon. The problem is you have to start at the top. There's no shortcuts unless you have those specific items to get you there. Like a bomb will blow through a wall, which will cut out some of the map. Yeah. But it was just laziness, in my opinion. I mean, it's nothing like the original Zelda where you had 8 structured completely different dungeons with different little puzzles thrown in and for you to figure out. It seems like there's a lot of shortcuts going on in this game, and I don't know if it's because they tried to make it a little easier, maybe because it's on the DS for some reason. Who knows why? I don't know why. A lot of times Nintendo seems to take the easy way out. I think they figure maybe this is a lot of people's first video game system. But ultimately the game was a little bit of a disappointment to me, needless to say. Ultimately, my final review, I'm going to give it a middle stylus. I want to give it a high stylus because it's polished quality, and a lot of people are going to feel it's a high stylus game. But for me personally, as a Zelda fan, I'm going to have to give it a middle stylus, just because it didn't take that extra step and pull off the quality that I expect from a Zelda game in terms of the gameplay. Outside some of the little things here and there, the boomerang play, the overall structure of the game was just lacking for me. The characters were lacking for me. The whole pirate ship thing just didn't work out for me. I prefer the whole fantasy setting, and we even in the original Zelda we got somewhat of a dragon involved, but it's still one of the best DS games you're going to be able to play. But I can't give it the ultimate thumbs up. It just left me out to sea, so to speak. No pun intended.
That's very good. I like that. Yeah, Chris pretty much covered everything in far greater detail than I certainly could have. As someone coming from outside the Zelda world, this is probably a more important piece of information for you. Because, yeah, Chris covered it from a Zelda fan's point of view. What about from the casual gamer? What about for the people who've never really delved into the Zelda depths? I agree with Chris. The presentation is very strong. The controls are very strong. It's one of those things where you've taken a construction point of view, and basically what you have is a fantastically beautiful building. The foundation is great. The architectural design's beautiful. There was no expense was spared on making this building out absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, once you go inside, what's inside isn't necessarily as good as what's on the surface. And I think what Nintendo was doing with this version of Zelda, this is coming from somebody who doesn't know anything about the old Zeldas, but this is coming from a person who knows video games. What Nintendo tried to do is they made Zelda for the Touch generation.
Right, exactly. Yes.
They wanted to take Zelda and and marry it up with the touch generation. They wanted everybody to be able to play Zelda. Well, not to sound like the grumpy old man, but game players have become less and less intelligent and much more demanding that their hand be held. They want to get through the game. They don't want to experience the game. I've never understood that. I've never understood saying, dude, I finished that game in 4 hours. But did you get to stop and see anything along the way? Did you get to get anything out of it? Or was it just run A to B as fast as you can? And I think that Nintendo tried to make a game that fit more of a traditional mold, which is why you have going back and forth across repeating areas. They wanted to take, from what I understand, the Wind Waker stuff, the boat from Wind Waker, and add some sort of a stylus throw to it. So somehow they said, well, let's make a lot of water so they have a lot of time on the boat. Then give you enough stuff on the boat. I think what happened is what they do a lot of times with very, very treasured IPs, is they take an IP and they try to make it for another generation, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't really work. Right. If they did not name this Zelda, if this was a generic role-playing game for DS, whatever you want to call it, it would have been better to the Zelda fans because you're not stepping over an IP that's important to them. And likewise, the other people, the casual gamers, might not have had to have been handheld through this Zelda sort of stuff. So It's sort of like there was no way to win by making this an everybody game. They should have either catered to the Zelda fans or went the other way and made the game a lot more of a casual game. Instead, they tried to marry the two, and I don't think it quite worked out as well as it could have.
See, the thing is, I'm sure there's plenty, and I know there are plenty of Zelda fans that absolutely adore this game. Obviously we're a little late with the review, but at the same time, I've played it quite a bit in the meantime, and I've seen a lot of other people remarking about how it may be their favorite Zelda of all time. But like I said, the main key thing for me, and it's just missing that whole essence of exploration. That is what ultimately what I feel the Zelda series is about. The exploration of the unknown, and I know that was originally Miyamoto's original concept for the game. I mean, him when as a kid, running through, walking through his little wooded area, finding little caves to kind of check out, and not knowing what was in there, And this game is just lacking that. I mean, it's a total turnaround of what I feel is proper for a Zelda game. I mean, there's just too much hand-holding, too much A to B. You have to do this. I mean, there's parts of the game where if you don't know where to go, or if you don't know how to solve a puzzle, you're screwed. I mean, there's nothing else for you to do. If you don't figure that puzzle out, then you're not advancing in this game. Whereas in something like the first Zelda or even Twilight Princess, I mean, it worked out there fine. If you can't figure out a specific problem or a puzzle, you're free to escape from that and roam around this huge country or this huge, the whole game world. Just roam it and look for things or sidetrack yourself, find little side quests, and then come back to that puzzle later. In this game, all you're left with is plotting courses on a boat and then looking for buried treasure underwater. And even then, you have to have the part for your ship to do that. And then the things you find are just normally things like coins and coins and coins. You're not finding any cool new items or anything necessarily. Maybe some ship parts here and there, but they ultimately don't really add a whole lot to your overall gameplay. They just speed up your ship or make your cannon stronger. But when things like that, when just pointing at enemies on a screen while you're traveling in a boat, it just doesn't. It's not there. It's not something that wowed me over. And, that was always something in original Zelda and Twilight Princess even that I really thoroughly enjoyed, finding like this new little area to explore and go through and seeing that heart container out there and wondering, how am I going to get that? And not until maybe 6 or 7 hours later getting the little ladder that allowed you to walk across the water, lay it down and get that heart container and then say, I got it. None of that is here in this game for me. Now, I could be wrong, but, as a Zelda fan, and I've been one it's been over 20 years now, it's the same formula. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. I mean, it's just lacking that extra special oomph. And I think that's why I'm giving it a middle stylus and not a high stylus, because for me, something like a Zelda game is a big thing to me. I mean, every time a Zelda game comes out, I want to play it. You know, I don't sit and say, I don't want to play that. I have to play the Zelda game. Even if I don't like it, I have to give it a shot and see how it is. And Twilight Princess came out, and I mean, I didn't like 3D Zelda games, so I said to myself, I'm probably not going to like it. But sure enough, I got it, and it was fantastic. I beat it. It took me about 2 weeks, but I beat it. And you know, and something like Wind Waker, I just totally dismissed it. Ocarina of Time, one of the best games ever made to a lot of people and a lot of journalists. I could not stand it. But something like this just didn't work with me either. And it's just a weird thing. And you know what's funny is, I remember when Animal Crossing first came out for the GameCube, and the visuals and the perspective of the game, you know, the way you were looking down on your character and moving them around, it's like a pseudo 3D look.
Yeah.
I always thought that was so really cool. And the first thing I thought of was, wow, how cool would it be if they took this Animal Crossing engine and transferred it over to the world of Zelda? And sure enough, finally, so many years later, they must have read my brain. They did do that for this game. This game is going to feel a lot like Animal Crossing in terms of the perspective that you're playing from. And I just think that's really cool. I like that whole that it was almost like a natural upgrade from the original Zelda. It kind of brought it up to date to a point visually to be 3D sorta, but at the same time it maintained that 2D look, you know. So ultimately, I mean, do you have some closing thoughts on the game? We gotta move on.
My biggest problem with the game is I felt that I was constantly being nudged to a certain direction.
Right.
And it
exactly
right off the bat, within the first 10 minutes of play, I tried to go off the screen a certain way, or I tried to go into a house or something, and it said, "Oh, you're not ready to see him yet." I'm like, huh?
Exactly.
Don't tell me I can't go over there.
It's too complicated, right?
The whole thing, the part that I stopped playing on was you have
lack of exploration.
There was one spot that you have to throw a rock over a fence to hit some guy.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
Dude, I never finished it. I couldn't do it. I spent probably 2 hours trying to hit that guy with the rock. Somebody fell asleep at the QA wheel on that one, and realizing that you have to be, I don't know. I don't understand how anybody can do it. I tried for 2 hours. So finally I got to the point where it's there's too many other great things for me to play. I'm going to move on, and I just never went back and revisited it.
Right.
And I'm glad you did, because that gives a better review. But from a casual point of view, if I want to play a role-playing game, I've got a lot of choices on the DS.
Well, I think technically, I've never really considered Zelda a RPG, so to speak. For me, an RPG role-playing game is sort of like what we've already discussed. Atrian Odyssey. Anytime you have equipment that you have to equip, you have hit points. You got a lot of micromanagement going on. To me, that's more of a classic role-playing game. For me, Zelda is a little closer to a Super Mario Brothers game, but with puzzles, or that adventure feel. I mean, you don't have a lot of. It's more of an action game than anything.
Yeah, and I wasn't blown away by the puzzles even. I mean, some of them were kind of ones involving the boomerangs kicked ass, but the rest of them, it's like the one where you had to, for example,
you know what? I'm going to spoil it. This is a spoiler, but I thought this was the coolest puzzle in the game.
Okay.
And I think it's sort of similar. I think you may have been able to do something like this on, what's that one? I totally forgot its name. In Europe, it's called Another Code. The one with the girl with the white hair. It was one of the original DS games. Oh my god, I totally drew a blank to it.
Huh.
Yeah, with the teenage girl, it's almost like
Trace Memory.
Yes, Trace Memory. I was going to say it's almost like Myst. Okay, I think there was a similar thing to that in that game. And this is a spoiler, so you might want to fast forward a little bit. And this took me forever to figure this out. I didn't even think of it. I have to admit, I went to GameFAQs. And when I found this out and I did this, I said, that was one of the coolest puzzles I've ever played.
I think I know what you're talking about, but go ahead.
It's where you have to copy the map to the bottom screen.
Right.
You have a map on the top screen, and you have a blank piece of parchment on the bottom. And you have to move that map, copy that map. Well, it's not blank, but the important stuff isn't apparent on the map. And you can't draw. For some reason, you're not allowed to draw on it. And I'm thinking, well, what the hell? How am I supposed to do this if I'm supposed to copy that and I can't draw? And like I said, stylus drawing on the map, that's one of the big things of the game. In this particular case, you weren't able to do it. It took me 2 days to figure it out. And this is the problem. Ultimately, coming back here, I couldn't play the game until I figured this out because the game wouldn't let me continue.
There's nothing else to do until it's very linear.
Right. So I went and played like Puzzle Quest or something while I sat there hitting my head, and I did not want to go to GameFAQs. I avoid GameFAQs whenever possible. Okay.
Yeah.
But I said, all right, I'm going to give myself a sneak peek because it pisses me off to succumb to this. But I would have, I got to tell you right now, I would have never figured this out. What you actually have to do is, with the game on, you have to close the lid to go into suspend mode.
Yeah.
Then open the lid again. And when you open the lid, it makes a little sound. And here, by closing the lid and pressing the screens on each other, it will imprint the top portion of the map onto your bottom screen. I thought that was the coolest thing. That was amazing. And that's one of the reasons why it got innovative use of the DS for the year. I mean, stuff like that, that blew me away. And I think that's ultimately what's so disappointing about this game. I mean, stuff like that blew me away, but then the gameplay itself overall it just wasn't there. I mean, like you said, you can't go somewhere in the map. Okay.
Yeah.
Even on the original Zelda, the first screen you see is Link, and there's a cave. So what's the first thing you're gonna do? You're gonna go in that cave.
Right.
The old man gives you a sword and you're on your way. But even in the original Zelda, you didn't have to go in that cave. You could have ran all over the freaking map without a sword, defenseless. Something that this game doesn't even let you do. So it's just the lack of exploration that did it in for me. And the whole water thing, that is not exploring. That is not the overworld. Don't even tell me it is. So,
yeah. Well, there you go.
What are you giving it, dude? Let's close this.
Like
up.
I said, the pieces are brilliant. The overall, the sum of the pieces is not. I feel like all of a sudden I feel like
parts.
Yeah, I feel all of a sudden like John Houseman doing one of those. What was I can't remember the commercials he used to do, but all of a sudden I feel like
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's the oil. It was the oil thing, Puritan oil or something like that. Remember? Mm-hmm. We know that you're fighting the fight against cholesterol. Puritan wants you to win. No, I think that's what it was. But no, anyway, that's for you old farts that are listening to the show. You guys will remember the John Houseman commercials. Honestly, middle stylus here, and it's because the game is so brilliant on everything but the final execution that you have to give mad props for what's there. But then you have to look at it from a 50,000 foot view and go, damn, going through the water's not fun. Damn, trying to throw a rock at that guy for 2 hours, that's not fun. But then you get to the boomerangs, and you're going, man, this is fun. Oh, God, I can't wait for another puzzle for the boomerang. And then you realize you have to backtrack. I hate games that backtrack. Especially linear games that make you backtrack.
The backtracking is absolutely horrendous. Now people will defend it and say, well, now later on you get the ability to bypass a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
You should be using those new items in new dungeons that are giving you more ways to complete the dungeons by combining all the stuff you have.
That's right.
You shouldn't be combining your new items to get through a prior dungeon that you've already beat faster.
That's right.
That's just weak gameplay, in my opinion.
I think that's someone again. I think
and for a Zelda game of all things, totally weak.
Somebody basically said, "Hey, let's look at the model of adventure gaming right now, and let's bring it to Zelda, and throw in the DS, the DS stamp on it." And what happens is you get a game that's like a lot of other games where there's backtracking and linear play and all the things that most modern, action adventure games give you, and that's not necessarily what Zelda people want. So, middle stylus, still a great title. Would I pay $34.95 for it? I'd probably wait until it went a little cheaper.
The problem is it's Nintendo, and it probably won't.
Yeah, so, you should have gotten it with the swag. Hopefully, if you pre-ordered it and you got the swag, that might have been the better part of it for me, because I've got tons of Zelda swag. But in any event, middle stylus from both of us. Let's move on. We've been banging on Zelda forever. Dementium the Ward. Now, this is a game that a developer from nowhere came up with, and they weren't even originally going to get the game published. I mean, they didn't have a publisher for the longest time, and it turns out that this is like one of those wow. I mean,
It came out of nowhere and just blew us away.
well, and they've been talking about it forever. I mean, it was like, yes, I mean, we've got this great 3D engine that does the best 3D lighting on the DS, and it's scary, and it will freak you out, and there are zombies to kill. We've got the whole kit and caboodle. And it's like, yeah, when can we have it? And it's like, well, we don't have a publisher yet, but here's some screenshots.
Yeah.
And so we've been jonesing for it. Anybody who's looking for a horror survival game, what do you got on the DS? Resident Evil. And Resident Evil. So your choices are not high. A lot of us have been waiting for a Silent Hill. I want something that's gory. I want to be able to see blood. I want to be kind of creeped out a little bit. I want to be scared. And this game kind of pulls it off. It's from new developers Renegade Kid, which you have never heard of before. Published finally by, again, I gotta say it, Gamecock Media Group. Dude, I mean, that is like the funniest thing ever. I'm sorry.
It's right up there with Mastiff. I love it.
Mastiff. Yeah, Mastiff.
It's got a Mastiff Gamecock, man.
Anyway, this is your fairly standard Silent Hill-esque puzzles within a survival horror action game.
To me, it's almost like a Silent Hill in a first-person view.
Absolutely.
And you got the flashlight thing. It's straight out of Doom 3, and the thing is, now this may make you sound like, well, we've played this kind of game before, but on the DS, I mean, as a portable game, it really blows you away. The engine is gorgeous, and I've already read that they're already planning another game based on it. So I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where it's like when you saw Brothers in Arms, it's like, holy crap.
Am I playing the DS? Yeah.
Am I on a DS? Did somebody sneak a PSP in here and stick it in a shell? Because it really does look that good. There's so much attention to the engine details. It is a great title. It's something that we've needed for a long time on the DS. Mature rated, scary horror stuff delivered, executed flawlessly. It's a game that will creep your ass out, and that's what you need. It starts off a little slower than I'd hoped. You want to start killing stuff right off the bat. But remember, this is like Silent Hill in the fact that there's a story that you have to uncover first.
It's the creeping unknown.
The puzzles start off very simple. And then you think to yourself, man, it's better to get harder than this. And it does. But again, it's one of those things where they slowly move you through this thing. And it creeps you out. It's got the good graphics. It's not something you're going to be afraid to show your friends. And it's one of those things you play with the lights off and a set of headphones on, and you'll be freaked out. You will get the sudden corpse effect. You will be scared by a zombie.
Yeah, it's one of those it's like a little haunted house. You're led through with minimal ammo, minimal weapons, a flashlight that you can flick on and off. It's a lot of mostly touchscreen based. You got your standard touchscreen / D-pad movement for strafing, rotation, whatnot. The shoulder buttons will activate or select the weapon. It's like another hotkey button. You have your touch screen where you can get a notepad so you can write little clues on. You can draw a map, sort of like Zelda.
Yeah.
You can write your little clues down and everything else. That's very well done. But like Shane said, Shane R. Monroe equals carnage, and you're not going to get that at the beginning of the game. It's going to take a little lead. There's a little bit of a lead up. It's one of those horror thrillers that takes place in a psychopathic. Asylum. So,
it takes place in a hospital, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy hospital. So it's not your typical hospital, but it's really the ambiance and everything is just head above heels what you would have expected on the DS. It's one of those games that I think a lot of people are just gonna not even know exists. I mean, it's got no advertising whatsoever.
No.
It's probably very limited as it is to pick up.
Yeah.
I barely ever see it on the rack. So if you want it,
I've seen it a couple of times, but yeah,
definitely grab it ASAP, or you're gonna miss out on it. It's a very good game. I'm already, I think I'm about 5 chapters or so into it. So it's a good game to play in bed at night. when it's dark, just get under the sheets and roam around. Some of the the zombies are very strange. Some of the enemy animation could be a little better, I guess.
I understand.
Yeah, but otherwise, just everything about it. The atmosphere is and the way you kind of have it's like almost a fake peripheral vision. Do you notice on the side of the screen, it's almost like it's dusty or something, So you can really only see straight ahead.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That really adds to the overall graphic flair of the game, I think. And then the flashlight works amazingly well. I mean, the overall graphics are just blow you away. It's some of the best graphics on the DS, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we get another game from these guys soon. I will be very pleased. So Dementium, full stylus up for me.
Yeah, full stylus up for me too. Some of the little puzzle elements are cool. You got your customary, here's a piano. What would you like to play?
Yeah.
So of course, you have to figure out what keys to hit to unlock a clue and so forth. That's one of the early puzzles. So I'm not really giving much away. Just little things like that. There'll be maybe a code combination that you need to enter a key code to get into a doorway. Well, if you were smart enough to look on a wall earlier, you'll see a key code was written on the wall in blood. Well, for you to help remember that, you can write it down in your little notebook using the stylus. So stuff like that. It's really cool stuff. Really neat. So You'll use your head and you'll also use your action. You got a little bit of both. It's mostly more of a puzzler in a way, a first-person shooter puzzler. So.
Yeah, if you want zombie killing, I highly recommend Touch the Dead. That's a lot of people. For some reason, a lot of people were going into this game thinking it was like a Touch the Dead sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
House of the Dead.
It's not a House of the Dead game. This is a 3D exploration, lots of puzzles, a little action sprinkled within. But still a great quality title. Hats off to Renegade Kid. You've made a big splash on the DS.
Good job, guys.
We can't wait to see what you do next. So, congrats. Okay, the next two should be a lot shorter of reviews. Jewel Quest, another one of those games that you picked up kind of like, I got $20 burning a hole in my pocket. Puzzle game, huh? This kind of looks cool. I'll pick this up.
A puzzle game on the DS. My God.
Yeah, my God. And you're always looking for another great puzzle game because eventually you burn out of one. You want to play something a little different. And so this is from Activision. It comes from iWin, which is a big online gaming place that you play Flash games and stuff. And Jewel Quest is, by the way, originally spawned from that. And, so you're sitting there going, okay, this is kind of a jewel game. I can do jewel games. I like swapping jewels. But it turns out that the game is more than just your standard jewel swap. In fact, it's not really a jewel swap at all.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's basically almost like another first glance a Bejeweled type of game.
Right.
But you're mixing a little bit, and it's almost like the other game I was bringing up earlier called Monster Puzzle, which is a European/Japanese game. Yeah. So this is a good alternative, to pick up at a store where you have to clear so much of a background using the jewel pieces that are supplanted on top of the background, and you have a certain percentage of the screen that you have to clear based on matching up these jewels.
Yeah.
So, it's one thing to move the jewels and make them disappear and have them fall, but you have to have that background, so much of it completed and moved out of the way before the timer runs out. And let me tell you, I think I'm only on the second stage of levels, and I'm already, man, it's giving me a hard run. The difficulty ramps up.
Yeah, the game has it's one of those things where it's like, they didn't have to go through all of this work to make this game. And at the core of this game, it's exactly what Chris told you. But there's more to it. They start changing the layout of the screen where it becomes almost impossible to get a certain color of gem to a certain location. They start hiding jewels underneath rocks, and you don't know what color the jewel is under the rock unless you happen to line them up right. And it's funny because you're also on a time limit the whole time.
Exactly.
To get it finished. And here's what's kind of cool. The game is there's a story. The story's based on a game about going through Africa. You're exploring Africa. And there's a story going on as you're moving from location to location, playing puzzles in each location. As you complete certain percentages of the screen, the very nice upper screen, instead of just leaving it like, you know, a statistic screen, how many red you've cleared, how many green you've cleared, they actually have a pretty nice looking graphic screen at the top. And as you play, as you start clearing it out, new things appear on that screen, and they're very well animated. It's a nice touch that they didn't have to do. And you say to yourself, man, that's kind of cool, you know? And, you know, so they, again, like Chris says, it ramps up in difficulty. There's a story arc going on in the background. Believe me, you can skip everything. You can simply move from puzzle to puzzle. You don't have to pay a damn bit of attention to what's going on in Africa. But for those people who just can't play a game that there's no story attached to, it looks pretty decent.
Basically, if you want a story, you're better off getting something like Puzzle Quest.
Yeah, play Puzzle Quest. There's more of a story in Puzzle Quest.
If you want your moving, you know, pieces and all. But still, I mean, this is a fun game. It's a nice little, just relaxing, sit back, you know, play a couple rounds and put it away, you know, at the doctor's office type game. And
absolutely.
And, you know, I thought it should have been brought to the attention, which is one of the reasons we're reviewing it, because a lot of people buy their DSs for these type of games, and I think this is one of the better ones out there. I think one of the few drawbacks, and this is something you pointed out to me even early on, was that the pieces themselves, and I don't think you mentioned it.
Not this time. No, I haven't mentioned it.
The graphics on some of the pieces just, they could have been a little better. I mean, you know, only because it's sometimes hard to tell which is what and whatnot, but they serve their purpose, but they could have been done a lot clearer. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and that was really kind of too bad, because everything else in the game is so detailed and clean, and then you see the puzzle pieces, and you're going, it's something that shouldn't be detracting your eye from the rest of the glory around you.
Right.
And it's like it's so blatant that it's like, oh, well, damn. I mean, couldn't you guys have done something a little bit better with that? You know, like if you saw Seven Wonders of the World, the game is almost identical to Jewel Quest. It's a DS game, but this time, instead of having all of the cool lush stuff around the game board, Seven Wonders of the Ancient World, that game actually has beautiful pieces. And the rest of the game kind of sucks. So it's like they pick and choose what they're going to work on, and then the rest takes a back door. So, but you know, that's the only bad thing I can say about the game. Otherwise, the game's very engaging. It's great for what it does. I think it's a budget title too. Maybe not. So you might want to wait for it to hit budget, because it's not one of those games where it's like, you know, you feel like you're playing a fully realized console game. It's a casual, jewel-encrusted game. And so, you know, sort of the 1995 is where I'd want to pay for it.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in the game that I wouldn't recommend to anybody. I mean, even with the jewel pieces looking kind of meh, you know, you're not there to look at the jewels. You're there to do the puzzles. So stylus up from me.
Yeah, for a puzzle game, I'm going to have to, I mean, in terms of the genre of the puzzle games available in the DS, I'm going to have to say it's definitely a puzzle, a stylus up. It's a good, solid little puzzler. And I can judge that based on the fact that I've spent hours addicted to it already, you know?
Yeah, that's what tips me off is when games like that can really, really suck my time. Like one of the games that's really eating my ass right now is Super Collapse 3. One of those games I would have never originally decided to play. But believe it or not, I started playing that, and it owns my ass hook, line, and sinker. We're going to review that in a future show. That's the same way I felt about Jewel Quest. And yeah, it's $19.99 at Best Buy. It's $29 at Amazon. So shop around. You'll find a better price for it. So you'll probably find a used copy. Yeah. So, cause a lot of people, you know, they play for a while, they get bored of it. You know, they have to turn it in for the next thing. So take advantage of them.
And hey, if you trade in 2 of your brand new $50 games now,
we'll give you 20% off.
Yeah, we'll give you 20% off the third game, their new game that you're getting. Oh, my
God, please kill me now.
Yeah, so that $100 you just spent on those 2 brand new games that you're trading in, they will give you back a whole $2. So,
actually, you have to pay us to take that copy of Madden 04. Too much work.
Well, no, hold on. You can't even do that because they don't take sports games.
That's right. No more sports games. That's so funny. Hey, listen, I know most people aren't into GameStop, but I've got to put this down. $14.99 at GameStop. for Jewel Quest Expedition.
Oh,
$14.99, no brainer.
Is that new or pre-owned?
That's new.
Okay, so you're basically, is it with the Saran wrap on, or?
Yeah, well, if you order it from GameStop.com, you might actually get that. My wife was pissed when I got her Solitaire Overload, and it had to be one of the, the last one, only the shelf unit. She's kind of pissed, but it's like she wanted the game so bad she didn't care. We'll review that on a future show too. Very cool title. Last but not least, well, it actually is least because this is the last of our reviews, the Namco Museum DS. Chris, you've got some very specific feelings about this title, so why don't you start?
Well, where do I start? As was said earlier in the show, this is actually from the same group of guys, I believe, that did the actually very well done Konami Classics edition collection. So I don't know what is going on here, but I don't feel that some of the polish and gleam has translated very well over to the Namco side. I think ultimately the problem I had with this collection, this is your typical Namco collection, where they throw a bunch of games on the cartridge and you don't quite get enough for the money. It's one of those times where you're going to say, why didn't they just throw in their whole entire library and just charge me an extra $10 more than what this would have cost, I would have happily paid $40 for this if it would have just had maybe, all 30 of their classics. I mean, look at the original PlayStation Namco museums. They had 5 of them. 6 if you count the Japanese one because you got the, Namcot. And that was, with the Rolling Thunder and whatnot. So you had quite a range of classics in that set. But in this one, you're getting mighty hits such as Dig Dug 2 and the Tower of Druaga. Meanwhile, nowhere can be found Miss Pac-Man. Something's wrong here, when you don't include one of the top games of their. Then again, they could have a little, since Miss Pac-Man was not a Japanese Namco created game. It could be the feeling that they're trying to get a little bit of revenge on that point. Yeah. Maybe they don't consider that a true Namco classic. But what? Hey,
don't forget the screaming classic Galaxian.
Yeah, well, Galaxian actually, it was never a bad game for me. I mean, it was always better than Space Invaders. But the problem is, Galaga exists. Yes.
Yeah, Galaga kicks its ass so hard.
Galaga exists, and that makes it a moot point. Right.
Yeah, and Galaga's on this title too, so it's like, don't give us Galaxian and Galaga, you dumbass. Take Galaxian out and give us something super sweet.
I think that's ultimately what my big problem with this series of or this compilation is, the lack of decent titles. I mean, we get the favorites such as Pac-Man, and we get Galaga, and they throw us a bone with Mappy. I mean, how many times have you seen Mappy on a portable format, which is pretty cool. Although
Mappy's a great game.
Mappy's a pretty solid game. I consider it one of the B titles in their series.
Really?
But something like Dig Dug 2 and Druaga are definitely C-class titles that no one really needs to play these days. Yeah. Terrible games, absolutely horrendous games. I don't know, somebody in Japan must really like Druaga because it appears all over the place for them. Heck, there's even a little level in Quick Spot.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I'll tell you, let's look at the games that are in. Okay, yes, Pac-Man, Galaga, Xevious, Dig Dug 2, Galaxian, Mappy, and Tower of Druaga. Now listen, Pac-Man's an icon. Pac-Man's in the Smithsonian Institute next to Dragon's Lair. Mad props to Pac-Man. Got it. The original Pac-Man is still not my favorite version of Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm. No, it isn't. I love Pac-Man, and it was good when it first came out, but ultimately it just pales in comparison. I mean, if you're going to play a Pac-Man game, what's the first game that you're going to run to?
Miss Pac-Man Speed Up.
Yep.
That's what I run to.
I know, I like the Speed Up too, but Miss Pac-Man ultimately is the game that you're going to be running to.
I want Super Pac Gal, which is the ROM set that's in my Miss Pac-Man machine, which is classic Miss Pac-Man, but only Miss Pac-Man speeded up. That's it. And so Pac-Man, it's like, okay, cool nostalgia, but I'm not going to play it. Galaga, yes, I love Galaga. I'll play Galaga. No problem. Okay. Xevious, I'm not going to play Xevious. Dig Dug 2, I'm not playing Dig Dug 2. Galaxian, I ain't playing Galaxian. Mappy, I love Mappy. I will play Mappy. And then you got Tower of Druaga, which I'm not going to play. So what we have here are 2 games I'm going to play in this collection.
Right. I mean, you get Dig Dug 2, but you don't get Dig Dug. I mean,
that's retarded.
But the thing is, the main game, the big kahuna of this collection, as was said, is Pac-Man. I mean, that's going to be the game that pretty much everybody is going to be playing in this collection. That's the game that, I mean, probably one of the reasons you're buying this collection is going to be Pac-Man or Galaga. Now, the problem is Pac-Man isn't even properly emulated, in my opinion. I mean, you have a dual screen. Anybody who's played the original, one of the few early releases on the DS, Pac and Roll.
Yes.
A decent title, but unfortunately, you know, it could have had a little more going for it, I think, and some of the difficulty. Now, what was cool about it, though, is it had an unlockable version of the original arcade Pac-Man.
And it's fabulous.
It's fantastic. You used both screens. Now, the center of the screen, the separation was very minimal. Half of it was taken up by the ghost box anyway, so, you know, it wasn't even really a big issue. It was very well done, much like Metroid Pinball. You know, the illusion is missing. So it's very well done. Now, what drives me crazy is I'm thinking, okay, maybe Pac-Man, they just ported it over to this. You know, it was such a well done recreation. Wrong.
No, wrong.
No. It plays sloppy, and the graphics are overall. What bothers me the most is even in vertical mode, they could not fit Pac-Man properly 100% onto the screen.
Right.
You can get a scaled down version, which gives you a pixelated mess, basically, and that's mainly due for the DS's resolution. But when you do max it out, it actually has to move back and forth to fit the screen in. So when you're on the left side of the maze playing vertically, which is one of the few games in this collection that you can actually make use of the vertical screen with. I mean, I found that even Galaga is a little difficult to use because you have the button placement, and it's just hard to hit that extra fire button, you know, in vertical.
Yeah, in vertical mode, it's unplayable, and unfortunately, if you play it in the other mode, you either have to have it scrunched super tiny or stretched like mad. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, you can play it, but I've got a GP2X sitting next to me right here that can actually play it properly. So it's like,
Yeah.
Now let me tell you why you buy this package. Frankly, in all honesty, you don't buy Namco Museum for any of the classics we've just talked about. If you're buying it for that, then you're going to be pissed.
And I think this is the original reason why they kind of threw in some of these dumpy titles.
Yeah, I think that they realized that they didn't want to shoot the wad when what you're really going to buy this title for is the incredible version of Pac-Man Versus. Now, like 5 people on the planet have Pac-Man Versus and can actually play it because of the incredibly difficult way the original version of Pac-Man Versus was required. Now let me paint you a picture here. Pac-Man Versus came as a pack-in with, if I'm not mistaken, Pac-Man World or Pac-World 3 on the GameCube.
That would be correct, yes.
See, look at that. It came as a pack-in. You could not buy, first of all, you could not buy Pac-Man Versus separately. You can't buy it as a standalone product for the GameCube. That was the first problem. You had to buy it with a very, very marginally crappy game, which is Pac-World 3. Now, the other problem was the hardware requirements. In order to play this, you had to have 3 controllers, a Game Boy Advance, and a link cable to go to the GameCube in order to properly realize this game. And you're saying to yourself, holy crap, I mean, the investment. I actually went out and bought all the stuff I needed. I bought all the extra controllers. I bought the link cable. And that's just so happened that I happened to have a Game Boy Advance laying around the house. Based on that, I could actually play this title. And let me tell you something. This was done by Miyamoto as well as the guy that originally created Pac-Man. Mm-hmm. What's the guy's name? Iwatani, whatever.
Yeah, it's one
Same
of those
guy.
things.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Overlapping a little.
So these 2 brilliant minds came up with this game. So you know it's going to be tight. Now, the game itself.
His name's Toru Iwatani.
Yes, that's right. That sounds right. So this game is brilliant. This is one of the most brilliant Pac-Mans next to Pac-Man CE that I've ever seen. And everybody gets to play a ghost or Pac-Man. And whoever catches Pac-Man as a ghost gets to become Pac-Man. And on the Cube version, that means you're handing around controllers. Oh, you got me. Let me hand you my Game Boy Advance. You hand me your controller. You get to be Pac-Man. And Pac-Man, get this, you played the Pac-Man maze on the Game Boy Advance screen. As Pac-Man, you could see the whole field along with the ghost, just like you were playing regular Pac-Man. up on the screen was split, and each person could see a ghost that they were playing. And you could only see a little piece of the maze that the ghost was in. So the ghost had a limited visibility. So what had to happen is the ghosts had to play nice together. Everybody playing a ghost had to coordinate. It became like a Rainbow Six effort for the ghost to track down Pac-Man. Trust me, it's one of the most brilliant games ever, Pac-Man Versus. But, of course, nobody got to play it. Right. So here's what they did. They took that and they made it so that you can play this on 4 DSs with no cables, no wires, and a single copy of the game. Beautiful. So what I'm telling you here is the bottom of the truth is this package is $20, okay? So it's $20. It's a budget title.
Is it really? Wait a minute. I gotta keep talking. I'm gonna check on that. I don't think this is a budget title.
It's budget now. I just checked Amazon. So it's $20. Now, for $20, you get one of the greatest Pac-Man games ever created. You get a handful of really crappy Namco titles. You get Galaga, which is on this, and Mappy, which is kind of But you get this for 20 bones, and you get a single card play to play your friends in this, which is, by the way, the translation of Pac-Man Versus from the Cube to this, phenomenal. They paid great attention to detail. The graphics almost look exactly the same. So they did a quality job. So this shouldn't be called Namco Museum DS. This should be called Pac-Man Versus DS that also includes these 5 or 6 some not so great Namco games. Unfortunately, it was kind of packaged the other way. So as a Namco museum of classic Namco games, this package fails. However, as Pac-Man Versus DS, it succeeds greatly. So this is one of those ones that's really hard to gauge. It's hard for me to give it a score because part of it's amazing and the other part's less than amazing.
Well, the thing is, I mean, especially compared to the Konami collection, this is a total washout. I mean, the selection of titles alone is terrible. You know, Pac-Man Versus aside, I mean, most people probably aren't even going to be playing that, no matter how good it may be.
Yeah.
Most people are going to be playing this because they want accurate recreations of Pac-Man and Galaga, and God forbid they want to actually play Draga or,
Xevious.
Dig Dug 2. Xevious. Xevious is one of the worst games ever made as well. I love Namco and everything, and I love everything. I love the characters and their IPs and so forth. But even they have some failures, and it just blows my mind that some of this stuff just got the selection of titles is ultimately the problem. The only good thing it has going for it is that, of course, it should have high score saving abilities. But personally, I would highly recommend you skip this and go out and get the original Game Boy Advance collection because it's probably even cheaper. And for some reason, I think the graphics came off a little better on it. I don't know what it is. Something about the graphics on this just seemed a little pixelated for me. Draga actually comes off pretty decent because that's one of the few horizontal screen games. Or maybe no, wait a minute. You know what? It is a vertical game, but for some reason it comes across very well on this collection. Most of these games are vertical, if not all of them are vertical screen games. So you're going to have to play around with some of the settings. You do get a nice assortment of settings to get the best view for the game. Unfortunately, really none of them come close to being 100%.
Yeah, none of them work really well. No.
Galaga works pretty decent, but as we said, you got the whole controlling aspect where you got to have to fiddle with your right hand or your left, but that'd make it even worse. Trying to get your right hand up above the vertical DS, which looks ridiculous. Pac-Man will play fantastic though vertical, even though it's not 100% accurate because the maze actually has to move along with you to fit on the screen.
See, I will not play a Pac-Man that does that. That makes me mental.
That's why the Pac and Roll secret hidden Pac-Man, which plays in normal DS vertical mode, looks fantastic because it takes up both screens. Why they didn't just recreate it here, I don't know. That everything was already done in that title. All they had to do is port it over. Be done with it.
Yeah. See, my feeling is they made Pac-Man Versus and they figured it wouldn't sell on its own, so they had to bundle. Exactly. They had to bundle it with some of their.
Yes.
And it's a shame because a lot of people are going to miss out on Pac-Man Versus because the rest of the package is so crappy.
And
Here's what I'm going to tell you.
I don't even know if $20 is worth it for Versus. I mean, unless you have a core group of friends that you're going to be able to play this with.
That's true. Now that's something that's very important. You mentioned that you need to have at least 2 people to play with, including yourself, or not including yourself. You need 3.
That didn't sound too good.
Yeah, exactly. Pac-Man Versus requires 3 people to play it before it's fun. You controlling Pac-Man and your friend controlling 1 ghost out of 4, not fun. Put 3 people controlling ghosts or 4 people controlling ghosts while you're controlling Pac-Man equals big fun. So it's a party game, which is going to make the audience a little more limited. I'm sorry to say that they've dicked up the rest of the package. I'm going to give it a middle stylus because Pac-Man Versus kicks so much ass and you only need 1 card to play.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that caveat comes with the fact that the rest of the package is kind of junk. Go get the Konami pack and wait till you can get a hold of the Namco pack for a decent price.
Yeah, I mean, if it's maybe priced a little lower, I don't even know. I'm not too sure about it. But it was funny. I was just looking on Wikipedia, and there's a rumor saying that we may be getting more of this series on the DS. And that actually makes me a little scared because if we're going to be getting, they're going to do another milk run where you're going to maybe get. Now, see, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to get Rally X. We're going to get Miss Pac-Man. We're going to get Dig Dug in the next one. And, in reality, what I would love to see are some of the lesser-known Namco titles and some of the ones that are actually my favorites. Something like Galaga 90, which, I mean,
God,
one of my
I'd
favorites.
bet myself.
Galaga 89, whichever one you want to take, or 88 rather, Galaga 88. I mean,
yeah,
give me that. I'd be all over this.
Yeah,
okay?
I'd wet myself for that, please.
I would even handle maybe a little bit of a graphic deficiency in terms of trying to fit it on the screen. What about Felios? I don't know if anybody's played Felios. I mean, I like to think I'm one of the few Americans that probably actually played a Felios arcade cabinet. That was a Genesis title. They ported it to the Genesis. It was the only home port they had where you were on top of the horse, the Pegasus. Do you remember that one? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Assault. Remember Assault with the tanks? How cool would it be with the stylus?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
With the stylus. And they could probably work that in there. Rolling Thunder. How about Rolling Thunder? Give me Rolling Thunder.
I would love Rolling Thunder. You're right.
For the longest time, I never knew, and this is not recently, but, maybe the last, 10 years or something, I never even realized that was a Namco title for some reason. I always thought Atari made that game.
Really?
But, yeah, I don't know why. But also, I know they distributed it in America, Atari. What else? Just lots of little oddball titles like that. I'd love to see them on the, put them ported. Get some newer breath in here. Listen to me. Newer, younger, I don't know, titles that don't get a chance.
Give me Gapless. I'd even take
Fresher breath. Yeah. Gapless. Oh God, don't even go there. But no, honestly, I mean,
I want the arranged.
I don't want no freaking Tower of Draga. Yeah, arranged would be good.
Dude, give me Pac-Man arranged.
Pac-Man arranged was great. Galaga arranged, not so much.
Yeah. I kind of liked Galaga arranged though. A little. I kind of liked.
Didn't work for me. See, that's the problem. Galaga 88, Galaga 90. That's set.
No, you're right.
Hey,
that is.
You know what I would love to see, and we're never going to see it. It's a Japanese title for the most part. It's Cosmo Gang the video. What a fantastic title. I actually have the arcade board for that. I loved it so much in MAME that I went out and actively purchased it years ago.
Nice.
Yeah, if that would come out, it's basically a clone of Galaga 88, except they're using Namco's. You know what the characters are in the game on Point Blank DS? You see them pop up. The little pink guys with the little pink aliens with the big mouths and the yellow eyeballs and
yeah, of course.
They use them in their crane games in Japan. That's their little mascot. But they're basically the enemies in this game. And it's dead on Galaga 90, 89. I couldn't find it or for Galaga 88, for the JAMA cab or the board, so I went with this, even though this seems to be a little more rare. But I would love to see those titles. Instead, we're getting this same old crap. I mean, and they're not done well enough for me. That said, I'm going to have to give my review. I'm giving it a down stylus. I just cannot. It was a big disappointment.
Can't recommend that.
I can't recommend it. Even Pac-Man versus.
Can't save it.
I can't save it. I'm sorry. It's just not enough for me. I mean, even $20 for that one title, which in essence is a freebie. It was thrown in for free with Pac-Man World 3.
Right.
The fact that you're able to play it is nice and it's easy, but ultimately that's only maybe 20% of this package. The rest of it is made up of mediocre ports to mediocre games. Even Pac-Man has not aged very well, which is why I'm thankful Pac-Man Championship Edition exists. It brings Pac-Man into the 21st century.
Yep. So there you have it, folks. Middle stylus from me, down stylus from Chris. And again, it wouldn't trust me, if this had not included Pac-Man Versus, there would not even be a medium stylus. It would have been a resounding stylus down. But Pac-Man Versus, to me, brought it out of that category. But I certainly understand Chris's point of view. It's
you know what? Go to Toys R Us. Go to Toys R Us, and I think you can even find it for $5 these days. It's got no high score save. Grab Pac-Man Collection. It's got Pac-Man arranged. It's for the GBA. $5 buys you that, and Pac-Man, and it's easily just as, I mean, the quality is probably going to be a little better than what you're going to get here. For some reason, there's not as much pixelization in some of the ports of that version. You're going to have a scrolling maze and everything, but
Pack Attack with that too.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. It's a lot cheaper. If you want your Namco fix, check it out.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good piece of recommendation. Well, damn. Okay, we're done with the reviews. So we've got a couple more things we want to talk about. First off, I want to give a little hardware update. Everyone seems to like the hardware segment. I want to just touch on a couple of topics. We're running the show a little bit long. I want to get this out of the way.
You mean our 7-hour deadline? We're not going to reach it?
Yeah, we're not going to reach our 7-hour deadline. A lot of people have been. A lot of this comes from the forums too. So if you watch our forums, you get a lot of this information a lot faster than the show.
Over
you can
at
reach
MonroeWorld.com.
That's right. Or you can get there from DualScreenRadio.com and select discussion forums. First of all, a lot of people have taken my recommendation and went with the Cyclo DS Evolution card for their DS flash card needs. Unfortunately, they had a problem with a little raid over there in China. You probably heard about it. Nintendo did a big raid on some flash cards, and these guys, the Team Cyclops, were somehow affected by that. So they've been promised stock for a long period of time, and they didn't get it. People have been losing their minds. There was a rash of bad cards that came out. Team Cyclops didn't have enough to replace them all. It was a very, very ugly thing. And a lot of people were kind of upset about that. I wanted to let everybody know that Team Cyclops is officially back in business in terms of that. They do have new stock on hands. Retailers do have stock. They're not lying when they say they've got Cyclo DS Evolutions. They're out there. They're available. They're a new run. And Team Cyclops, that always comes through. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that's an official deal. They are shipping. And
my wife loves hers.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. Supercard, there's a huge competitive nature amongst DS flash card people, and Team Cyclops is usually on board with having everything first. However, I do want to take a moment to give a little bit of kudos over to the Supercard people. I started with a Supercard as my first flash card, so I've got kind of a soft spot for them. But Team Cyclops, I really love them because they are so good with customer service, and they're always at the top edge of compatibility, which is what I want in a flash card anyway. 99% compatibility is not good enough for me. Even if it's for games that I don't want to play, inevitably the stuff that I end up wanting to put on my flash card, it'll be the 1% that doesn't play right on the R4, the Supercard. So, but in any event, I don't want to turn this into a bash session. Supercard has actually released a version of their software that lets you do real-time saves with Nintendo DS titles. So you're in the middle of playing Legend of Zelda and there's no save spot nearby. Hit a couple of buttons and it records a snapshot of the DS memory. You can restart anytime you want and save a copy for those of you who don't know what real-time saves are. Now, apparently the Supercard stuff's a little buggy. It doesn't have 100% compatibility, but on a good note, the Team Cyclops people within the next couple of days will be releasing a version of it for their card that apparently has very good compatibility and also has, of course, a little bit better features, smaller save state sizes, all that good stuff. Stuff that would concern you with save states. So keep in mind that save states are now a reality. Will it come to the flash cart near you? Apparently it will if you have a Supercard or Cyclo DS. R4 will still be waiting for them to get that crap updated until they can steal it from the other guys. Speaking of an R4 update, that's the way it seems to be. I'm sorry. R4 waits for everybody else to innovate it, then they reverse engineer and put it in. R4 did just get a firmware update. I can't tell you what's new in it, but a lot of people have given up on R4 putting out updates.
I think
so nobody
like
checks
one game working around or something like that. Yeah.
So R4 does have an update, and it's very lackluster, as R4 updates tend to be. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys about, and this is something I don't remember if I've talked about on a previous show, but I want to mention it again. Easy Flash has this great little slot 2 device called the 3-in-1 expansion pack. Now, originally it was designed to only work with their slot 1 solution, the Easy Flash 5, I think. Anyway, well, That's not going to keep people from reverse engineering that pig and making it work with other flash cards. What the 3-in-1 expansion pack is non-volatile memory, along with volatile memory, and a rumble pack. So what this means is it acts as a rumble pack, which is always cool, and it's for the DS Lite, so it actually fits in the slot properly. Nothing sticks out like the official rumble pack. It gives you the Opera memory expansion, so you don't have to carry that around. It gives you the rumble pack, and it gives you full speed Game Boy Advance play. And the nice thing about it is you can store the Game Boy Advance games on your slot 1 card and transfer it down to the 3-in-1 memory whenever you want to. So you can actually keep a fairly nice catalog of Game Boy Advance games with you and transfer them down when you need it. There's only room to hold one at a time on the 3-in-1 solution. The nice thing is if you pull that card out and go plug it into another DS that does not have anything in slot 1, it acts as an actual real GBA card. So if you want to let somebody play, say that Pac-Man collection Chris was just talking about, you copy it down to that card, hand them the 3-in-1 expansion pack, and they can now play that Game Boy Advance game. It's very cool. And they're like $19 you can find these expansion packs for. So there's no reason not to have one. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Finally, it looks like maybe one of the reasons that Nintendo is getting so pissy about flash cards is they're making one of their own. I know this sounds totally crazy. Nintendo is making a thing called the DS Vision, which is basically a DS flash card that takes micro SD memory that allows you to purchase and download, I'm sure, DRM protected content.
Yeah, where have we heard this before?
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't this sound familiar? Basically allow you to download original games, Game Boy Advance games, things like that, off of some pay service, and you'll be able to bring those down onto this flash card and play them on your DS. So maybe that's why Nintendo really is getting all pissy about flash cartridges. They don't want anybody to compete with them. So that's kind of what's going on in the whole homebrew bit. Okay. Last thing up, I think this is the last thing up. We mentioned something about getting you an update on the whole Dragon's Lair for the DS. Now, those of you who've listened to my show, Retro Gaming Radio, know that I'm a huge Dragon's Lair fan, and I've been dying for a home port that wasn't sucky. Unfortunately, pretty much every version that comes out for every console, every DVD player, there's always something wrong with it. The timings aren't right, the rooms aren't laid out properly, blah, blah, blah. So when I heard that someone was making an official port for the DS, I wanted to get involved. And suffice to say that not only did I get involved, which started off with me writing them and saying, hey, consider this Storytime Theater. I wrote to him and said, hey, you're doing on the DS. That's really cool. I'm really excited. So, how accurate is it going to be? And he's like, well, we wanted this to be as accurate as possible. And I said, well, there's not a good track record going on for portable versions or for home versions of Dragon's Lair. And I said, so what sort of precautions are you taking? He says, well, we have an advisory panel made up of people like yourself that either run huge websites, have large technical knowledge of Dragon's Lair, worked on the Daphne emulator. And he said, you want to be on that? I said, yeah, great. I'd love to be on that. So then I found out this guy was really committed to making a real version of Dragon's Lair on the DS. He wanted accuracy. And I said, fantastic. That's what I want to do. So he and I talked on the phone. I sent him video clips. I actually recorded myself playing an entire game of Dragon's Lair and sent him a copy of it so that he could see that the timings were off on the beta build that we were currently working on. I said, listen, you need to be able to move later on the Lizard King, blah, blah, blah. And so so much work and time I put into this that they gave me an official credit. They didn't tell me. They just kind of snuck it in that I'm now an associate producer of Dragon's Lair DS. So when you look at the title screen, when you get a copy of this game and you look at the credits, you will see me under the programmers list as associate producer. So very cool.
Nice.
And I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely a fantastic game. The purists are going to love it. There's going to be a brand new sort of a casual Dragon's Lair mode for Dragon's Lair, for new Dragon's Lair, or should I say future Dragon's Lair fans. The only thing that I've got right now is the classic arcade version. They call it the 1983 version. And I've got video of it. We actually run the official media distribution site here at Dual Screen Radio. If you go to dragonslair.dualscreenradio.com, you will actually be privy to beta information, beta videos, screen captures, all sorts of cool insight that I get because I'm a beta tester. And as a bonus for all my hard work, they've allowed Dual Screen Radio to have a 72-hour window of news. So before anybody else gets it, Go Nintendo or IGN or anybody else, we get the news 72 hours prior to anybody else. So I thought that was really kind of cool of them to do that. So, and speaking of which, we have an interview with this guy. Hansi is going to give us an overview, and he's going to explain what the philosophy is behind this. And we have this interview for you. It's good stuff. We removed a lot of the technical stuff out of it, because, the DS crowd's a little more of the casual side. I think everybody will find something interesting with this interview, however. If you're interested in the more technical piece of it, there's an even longer version, I think 15 or 20 minutes longer, on a previous episode of Retro Gaming Radio. So if you're more technically oriented, you want the full stuff, you'll want to go over there and pick up that episode. In any event, Chris, let's hear from Hansi, and let's hear what's going on over there at United Coders.
Awesome. Can't wait.
This is Shane R. Monroe with Retro Gaming Radio. I'm here with United Coders Hans Olsen, the executive producer and the lead programmer of the forthcoming Nintendo DS versions of Dragon's Lair. Welcome, Hans. Thanks for stopping by the studio here with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Very exciting. As you probably know in our numerous discussions, this is sort of the golden chalice for me personally, being a huge Dragon's Lair fan, that somebody has finally taken up the challenge and is making a Dragon's Lair from one of my favorite machines of all time, the Nintendo DS. Why don't you give us a little background on what brought you to Dragon's Lair?
Well, on a personal note, I was always a Dragon's Lair fan since the arcade came out, and I always wanted to play Dragon's Lair. And for a number of years, I was involved in other game development for other companies, but I always, had fond memories of Dragon's Lair. So eventually, about maybe a year ago or so, we contacted Digital Leisure. And through Digital Leisure, we got a hold of Gary Goldman and the rest of the guys at the Dragon's Lair LLC, and that's when we started negotiating about bringing Dragon's Lair to a handheld.
And you weren't, by any chance, involved with that horrible cell phone port of Dragon's Lair, were you?
We've seen the handheld version, or the cell phone port, as it's referred to. No, we were not involved. We have not worked on any kind of Dragon's Lair project before. And that includes the previous versions that have come out on, I believe it's Game Boy Color, and also the original Game Boy. Those versions were done by another company, actually, also here in California.
So tell us, there's been a media circus about the release of Dragon's Lair on the DS. In fact, early releases showed a dual screen view of the artwork and presentation, and I know a lot has changed since the original press release, the original screens that were released, and a lot of people were up in arms about various things, including the dual screen mode. Why don't you give us an overview of what's changed since then?
Well, when we first announced Dragon's Lair for DS, we made available to the public and the press a number of screenshots. And when we started working on the technology behind the DS version, we started out with the hardest challenge, which would be fitting Dragon's Lair DS onto a small cartridge. And because the original Dragon's Lair arcade has some odd 30,000 frames of animation, the biggest challenge that we had was to fit all those frames of animations without compromising on quality. So from a technology point of view, we squeezed it into the DS without compromising the technology, and that's the kind of technology we wanted to show, and that was showing the game running in a dual-screen environment. Now, in hindsight, when we look back, the press was had a mixed feeling about this, and especially the current fan base of Dragon's Lair. They did not like the dual-screen version for a number of reasons. One, because of the nature of the beast with the DS handheld, the technology, the actual physical limitations that you have about half an inch of plastic between the two screens. And that kind of ruins the visual of Dragon's Lair when you look at it play. So based on feedback from the fans, which means a lot to us, based on feedback from the press, which we also listen to, and especially based on feedback from what we call the advisory panel, which consists of a number of Dragon's Lair specialists and the hardcore fans, of which you yourself are part of, we removed that feature due to popular demand to remove it simply. Apart from that, the original specs that we announced, we left most of them in. There's going to be rumble pack support. There's going to be stylus support. There's going to be voice recognition support. There's going to be 2 modes of play now in the final set of specs. For the hardcore fans who already know Dragon's Lair and who like to play the mirrored scenes and who like to play the falling platform multiple times and all these things that the original had, there will be what is called an authentic 1983 mode in the DS version. The default mode of play, however, is being called Director's Cut, which is based on the Dragon's Lair enhancement, which Dave Hallock has been very heavily involved in. And so we brought him on board on the team, on the actual DS team. So he is now the technical producer, and the default gameplay will be called Director's Cut, and is based on the scene sequencing, which gives a more adventure mode and linear story throughout the castle from a new player's point of view. So we cater to both kind of players, new players who's never played Dragon's Lair before, like my own kids for that matter, and then the hardcore fans who like to play it like it was back then. So we have the best of both worlds, and the final spec that we just finalized and worked out seems to make everybody happy. Now everybody's just excited to see it play.
Now let's talk a little bit, before we get into the new Director's Cut mode, obviously my fans on Retro Gaming Radio are going to be more concerned with the 1983 arcade mode. The first question everybody asks me is it true authentic emulation? And unfortunately the answer to that is?
The answer to that is no. We're not creating an emulator. We are not taking existing code, for that matter, from any previous version, and we're not emulating the C-Log 80 CPU, for that matter. We are creating all code from scratch, and we are doing the timings as precise for every move on every scene that we can. And this is the particular reason where we have the advisory board, or panel, if you want to call it that, and that is spearheaded by Dave Hallock, who will oversee and make sure that every single scene, every single move, every single death scene, for that matter, even the resurrection scenes, are there correct in the right sequence, how they should be, with the right timings. So we are starting from scratch. We are kind of like building an arcade from scratch on the DS. It's not an emulator we're making like Daphne, the emulator. That is true. It's not an emulated version.
The Director's Cut. Now, when you say Director's Cut, that would seem to me that Don Bluth would be involved. Is that the case?
Don Bluth in person is very well aware of the project. Everybody is from the Dragon's Lair LLC. The person we talk to most is Gary Goldman, and he's more or less the spokesperson on behalf of the Dragon's Lair LLC.
He's the man.
And everything that we do and everything that we change, he is like the advisory panel. He is questioned about it. We take his advice seriously, and we take all feedback seriously. The Director's Cut is that mode, the mode of play. It is intended, like I said early on, for players who's never experienced Dragon's Lair before, because it's pretty obvious. Come on, I've had my daughters play Dragon's Lair, the arcade, and one of the things that they say, and everybody else who's never been exposed to Dragon's Lair before, Why are there 4 times falling platforms? Why do I have to do the swinging ropes, the fire room 2 times? Didn't I just do this? It's kind of frustrating. For new generation of players, it's frustrating. So we look long and hard and try to figure out, well, how do we cater to this? How do we resolve it so we don't have new players who's never played it being frustrated like that? That's when we discovered the Dragon's Lair enhancement that Dave Halleck was part of. And so we took his advice and we took his way of organizing the scenes in the game. And Dave has a lot of credit for this, but like Dave himself says, he can't take all the credit because he didn't invent Dragon's Lair. He did create the sequence of scenes so it's more logical and it makes more sense to play the scenes in the way that he came up with. But at the end of the day, the Dragon's Lair enhancement mode from the arcade that Dave worked on, which is also known to the Dragon's Lair LLC, it is, according to Gary Goldman, what Dragon's Lair should have been in the first place back in 1983. In hindsight, that is what it should have been. Thus, we invented the whole director's cut approach based on Dave Halleck and his involvement in it.
Well, that's really sort of a good definition of director's cut, how it was originally intended. We all know that things get chopped up, sliced and diced from inception to publishing, and I'm sure Dragon's Lair was no exception. So that's actually kind of good that we're going to see it in that respect. Now, all of us out here are wondering, what are you going to do with the stylus, the voice, and the rumble pack?
Well, let's take one thing at a time. The rumble pack, the way we envision it, we haven't developed the code yet. We've developed test code that works. The way we want the rumble pack to work is a lot of times it's very frustrating for new players especially. They don't know when to make a move in Dragon's Lair. It's fast-paced action, and they don't know when to make a move. And on some scenes, it's not visually apparent. There's no flash when you're supposed to make a move. So what we have in that instance, in that split second where you're supposed to make a move, the DS shakes. So you know, I'm supposed to do something here, and you better do something fast. If we don't have that, then some players will just be lost. They'll just die, because no move is equal to death also.
Right.
So the rumble pack is something that particular feature is only available in director's cut mode, not in the 83 mode, because in the 83 mode we want to keep everything to the basics, to what it was, to the D-pad navigation, and then the sword button. That's it. Whereas in the director's cut, that's where we play with stuff. That's where we experiment, and that's where the rumble pack come in, and the stylus, and the voice recognition. We could have had voice recognition support in the 83 mode. We could have had, stylus support there too. But based on the feedback we got from the advisory panel and others, they just want to play it like it was. So we leave that out. If you want to play with the fancy little features that the DS has, play director's cut mode. As for the stylus, what we have right now is you see the scenes running on the top screen of the DS, and on the bottom screen on the DS, that's where you have areas on the bottom where you can tap. So instead of you using the D-pad, you just tap on the left side to move left, right side to move right, and respectively for up and down also. And that's how it works for that. For the voice recognition, there's not going to be any blue. You're not going to yell blue, that's for sure. Blue is not a word that's in the game. It's all over.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, blue. Forget blue. I've been there myself. My daughters have been there. It doesn't work.
No blue.
What we really want to do is, of course, up, down, left, right, and we really want to introduce the word kill or slay. But we can't really use slay because it's not always about killing. And kill is kind of like a problem with the whole ratings board.
I don't like that word.
We would love to have kill, to have Dirk swing his sword, but I don't know. I mean, imagine typical scenario: a kid or someone sitting in the bus or a train or a subway in UK or on an airplane yelling "kill, kill, kill" because he's playing Dragon's Lair. We would love it. I think it's cool. I think it's a nice short word that really gives you the right feeling. But I'm not sure everybody else would like it. The ratings board for sure will have a problem with it.
Absolutely.
So we're still working on a word for that particular move, if you want to call it that. Again, that's where we use you guys on the advisory panel, and especially the people on the test team who's never played Dragon's Lair before. because they have some input and some experience that the advisory panel don't. So we kind of utilize the experience from both teams.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the scoring display. Now, that's something that I've seen go around the advisory panel a little bit, and you and I have even talked about it.
Yeah.
What did you guys end up coming up with for handling the score display?
Well, if you play the arcade mode, the 1983 arcade version of the game, we will have the score display and the same awkward scoring amounts per move and per scene as the original had. I mean, at first, when you don't know Dragon's Lair, and if you start reading about it and learning about Dragon's Lair, it's kind of odd. You get 49 points once you enter
right.
the scene, right? It's got 49. Come on, who came up with this stuff? You know, they got to be mental somewhere. So all these scores, but we keep it that way. You get 49 points just like you do in the arcade, and you will see it just like on the arcade. We'll actually have a little picture representing a little bitmap representing the arcade scoreboard on the bottom screen as you play it on the top screen. So the scoring's there. But that's not what we're going to have for the Director's Cut mode. For the Director's Cut mode, we're going to have a little scrolling map representing the castle. There's not going to be any scores. There's not going to be any percentage of completion. It's an adventure. You want to explore the castle. You want to manage to get through this adventure to save Daphne. So Dave Hella came up with this great idea of having a scrolling castle. So as you progress through the castle, as you play, you will see real-time scrolling on the bottom of the screen, so you have an idea of where are you in the progress of completing going through the castle. And that's something very unique and something completely new and not done in any previous version of Dragon's Lair. So that's something we're looking forward to getting some feedback on from everybody that's involved.
So is the adventure piece of it, is it linear? Do you still have to go through room by room, or can you jump around and clear rooms at your leisure?
You have to go through the castle the way that the scenes were laid out in the Dragon's Lair enhancement pack that Dave came up with. So it's that sequence of moves you have to go through. Now, if you die on a scene, that will be marked on the map. So you're not completely lost if you die, and then there's a little dot representing where you are on the scrolling map. So you will actually see yourself warp from one point to the other in the castle as you have to replay a specific scene once you get to the point where you have to replay scenes. There'll also only be one falling platform. And the image we have on the bottom screen of the scrolling map is actually the castle, where you see the castle when the game begins. You start a new game, you see the castle.
Right.
So you will see yourself move kind of like from the bottom of the castle and then upwards all the way up to the tower, and then the falling platform takes you down, and then you progress through the last part of the game as you reach that point, if you're good enough to get that far.
That actually sounds fairly cool. I can't wait to see a build so we can I can see you sent me a visual representation, an idea, and it looks fairly cool from this, so I'm kind of excited to see what Dave's come up with.
Well, that's just a mock-up. What the image you have seen has little yellow dots and little, call it checkpoints. You won't see that in the final game. In the final game, you will just see the image that you've seen, the mock-up of the castle, and then you will see yourself scrolling like a little representation of you as the player scrolling through the castle. Another thing we also took from the advice from you guys and the advisory panel was that we have 3 lives if you play the arcade mode from '83, and 5 lives if you want to play the Director's Cut mode. So the Director's Cut mode for new players, they get a little advantage. They get 2 more lives. Whereas the hardcore fans, they want to play it like it was, which in most cases were 3 lives per default, unless you change the dip switches, of course, in the arcade.
So will there be an availability, like on most of the other versions that are more or less accurate, a way to watch the game from front to back, a view mode or watch mode, as it were?
Yes and no. On previous versions of Dragon's Lair, a good example are some of the versions from Digital Leisure. On those versions of the game, imagine you go down to the store and you buy the game, or you order it online, whatever you prefer. You come home, you pop in the CD or DVD, and you're like, oh, there's a watch mode. It ruins everything. It ruins the whole fact that there is a game behind this product you bought. Because if you go to the watch mode, you can watch the entire adventure as you explore through the castle. You can see every scene, scene by scene, and then you save Daphne. What's the point of that? What's the point of showing the happy ending for a player who's never played it before? We don't believe that works, and neither do the people on the advisory panel. So for the watch mode, as it's known in the industry, there is no watch mode from the settings menu. But there is a hidden Easter egg, if you can find it, that gives you a little secret menu. And some of the things on that menu is you have a choice of choosing with unlimited lives. Now, this is, of course, not an Easter egg is an Easter egg. It's not something that's written in the manual or the documentation or printed on the box. So you have to figure out how to enter that mode. But that mode has some of the things that other versions have had. One is unlimited lives. Of course, we use that a lot as we playtest the game ourselves. And another one of those features is the watch mode. So if you find the Easter egg, you can watch the entire adventure being played.
Well, as long as it's available in some means, I'm sure everyone will be happy.
Oh, it's available. It's available, but we don't want new players who's never played Dragonslayer before. Go down and buy it. They come home, and the first thing they do is, let's watch the gameplay itself, and they're going to return it the next day. What's the point of that? They ruin the experience to themselves.
Absolutely.
There's no fun in that. So we're not going to make it visible, but it's there.
Gotcha. What about a tutorial mode for the newbies? A lot of people have a lot of problems, especially as you said, the new generation, of understanding that it's not a hold down the D-pad to run right, hold down to go left, that it's actually a sequence. It's a rhythm game almost. Right. Have you come up with any means of educating the new folks on how this sort of game works? Because there really isn't anything like that anymore.
Well, it's one of those questions it's one of the issues, I'd say. We're still working on how to best implement it. Because there are, I believe the Blu-ray version does have some kind of version, some kind of mode where you can play it, where it actually shows a green arrow or red arrow, if I remember correctly, that shows you, okay, you're supposed to make a move here, and if you do make a move and it's wrong, it shows up with a red arrow. And if you do it right, it shows up with a green arrow. We are thinking about implementing something similar, maybe. And that's one of the things that would be on this option screen, this traditional option screen, that you can enable that. We might even, we're not sure yet, but there's different ways we could do it. We could also use audio to do that. We could have, if you keep dying on a specific scene, we might have a little menu on the option screen where you can select a specific scene, not from all the scenes in the game, but from the scenes you've experienced so far, from the scenes you have actually seen. And then you can tap on the little image of that scene, and we might have the voice, using the voice recognition, and the whole speech might say left, right, up, down, to teach you, okay, you were supposed to go left on that particular scene. But we're not going to have a menu where you have all the little, every single little scene as a little visual icon, and then you can just, click on it and get the solution to the entire game. So we might introduce it where you have only for the scenes you've progressed through so far. It's something we're thinking about. It's something we can implement. It's something we have time to implement. But the proper way of doing it, we haven't nailed down yet.
Well, cool. Yeah, it sounds like you guys are definitely considering everything from every angle, and that's really good. That's a plus. Is there anything else about the title that you'd like to tell us about? Something that maybe I've missed covering, or that you'd like to mention?
Well, there's probably going to be one or two surprise features that we haven't announced to anyone yet, not even the people such as yourself on the advisory panel. But rest assured, in due time, as we get further through development, the advisory panel will be, informed and will have a say in the couple of things we're trying to introduce. There's a couple of extra things we would like to put in. We still have space to put in on the DS version. But for now, we've covered, I would say, the core mechanics of having an 83 version and the director's cut version, and we're trying to cater to both worlds. We will most likely have some more stuff in there, but it's not something we're ready to talk about until just before release, or until we at least go beta and then eventually final product testing.
Is there going to be a Wii version? And if there is, have you considered allowing the users to use the DS as their controller hooked to the Wii to actually play the game on the screen?
Well, once we're done doing Dragon's Lair 1 on DS, the plan is that we're going to immediately follow that up which has also been announced to the press now. We're going to follow that up with Dragon's Lair 2 and Space Ace. So we're going to do the trilogy of games that we consider, at least us, the best laser games out there, in our personal opinion. After that, there has been some talks about doing not just Wii but also PSP and also 360. All those three platforms are under negotiation, and I would say it's not really a matter of if we'll be involved in those; it's a matter of when.
You do know that they're accepting an extra $20 trade-in on the PSPs at GameStop, right? You might want to, I don't know, I want to be thinking about that. No, I'm just teasing. No, I'm serious, but that was more teasing. Also, did you notice in the press release that it calls it Dragon's Lair 2 Warp Time instead of Time Warp? Did you notice that?
No, I didn't know. I actually didn't write. Personally, I didn't write the press release. I had nothing to do with the press release. All I did was approve it. But then again, I guess in my busy schedule doing the actual game here, I must have overlooked that. And I'm just going to point the finger and say, well, it's the publisher's fault or somebody else's fault. No, I actually didn't notice that.
Yeah, and instead of Dragon's Lair, like plural, like dragon apostrophe S lair, they call it Dragon Lair. That's pretty funny, actually.
Oh,
it almost looks like.
That's
it
cool.
Looks like,
well,
yeah, it looks like it's badly formed English, kind of.
No, we did it on purpose to see the feedback we would get and to see how much attention the advisory panel would give us and the journalists would give us. It was totally intentional. It's one of those unique features. It's not a bug. Remember that. It's a feature. Yeah, so it was totally on purpose, I bet, from the publisher's point of view.
Well, I would feel sorry for the person who reads their email, because they're likely to get a whole bunch of them.
Probably, yeah. I mean, we already got a lot of feedback. I mean, the press release was issued, I think, 15 hours ago, and it's all over the web right now. So we'll just see where it takes us. I mean, right now we're almost done with the alpha version of Dragon's Lair, meaning that it's fully playable. In what we call the arcade mode, and then what's next is that we're gonna wrap up a number of things and we're gonna go into beta with the director's cut mode. I was not aware of those little issues. But
you gotta check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. But rest assured, they're just features.
They're just features. So we're looking at a first quarter 2008 release. Is that still? I mean, that's what's on the press release, but Dragon Lair is on the press release too. So.
Well, actually, it's gonna be finished way before then. Dragon's Lair for DS, Dragon's Lair 1 for DS, has a total development cycle of 3 months, and it's not really. We want to release it before Q1, but that decision is up to the publisher because it has to fit into their timeline and their release schedule. Not only that. Sure. There's 50 million sold units of the Nintendo DS right now. It's the biggest selling console, if I'm not mistaken.
Amen to that.
It's outselling everything and anywhere. Now, the problem with that, it's a positive problem, but from a developer's point of view, such as ours, and from the publisher point of view, who's manufacturing the product, is that although Nintendo says it takes X amount of weeks to manufacture and approve a product, right now, because there are so many titles and so many new developers and so many games coming out, you can't count on that time frame. So you kind of want to double or triple your production time, even after the game is finished. Even after the game is finished, because we're finished way before that. But,
sure.
Nintendo might not be capable of manufacturing it simply because they have a big backlog, and that's part of the game. Sure. You kind of queue up and they manufacture it in the way they get submitted, and especially now up to this coming Christmas. I mean, there's a lot of big titles.
There's a lot of stuff coming out by Christmas.
There's a lot of stuff coming out, and personally, but I'm just a developer. But personally, I don't want to see Dragon's Lair come out for Christmas. First of all, we wouldn't be able to manufacture it for that time frame. But there's so many other big titles coming out.
You'd rather have it sneak in under the radar, right, when there's not a whole lot of other releases to compete with.
Well, Q1 2008, there's always a lot of releases, but, we don't have to we don't have to compete about shelf space with the new Zelda or something like that.
That's the last one you want to go heads up.
Yeah, that's
with.
the last one. But that's actually coming out now here, the coming first of October, I believe it is. So it's pretty good that we're far into Dragon's Lair when that comes out, because then I'm definitely not going to be available for a couple of days.
Yeah, it will be, right?
Yeah, but I mean, Dragon's Lair is not a full price product. It's a mid-range product. So it's kind of like the Touch and Go series from Nintendo's own brand. It's not going to be priced highly. It's going to be priced mid-range. I don't have the final price. So also, of course, that also affects that you don't want to release it up to Christmas when all the big titles are going to take all the shelf space. You want to release it where there's fewer titles, and that's typically Q1, when people have got a little spare change to buy this. And then later on, of course, I believe it is to my knowledge, both Dragon's Lair 2 and Space Ace also will both be released next year.
One last question before we run off of here. I know you've got a busy schedule to maintain, and so do I. Last question I had, and on a more personal note than anything else, is why Dragon's Lair 2 before Space Ace?
It's not necessarily going to be that. It's not necessarily going to be that. We're going to do, the thing about it is, because Dragon's Lair 1 is going to come out in Q1, we will actually more or less be finished with the second game. So we'll be halfway or close to finished with either Space Ace or Dragon's Lair 2. Now, in which order they come out, Dragon's Lair 1, then 2, then Space Ace, or Dragon's Lair 1, Space Ace, Dragon's Lair 2, that's not for us as a developer to decide. That's the publisher. I think, and I believe, and it's the impression I have, that from a business point of view, it makes sense to release Dragon's Lair 1, then release Space Ace during the summer, and then late next year introduce Dragon's Lair 2. So players can get familiar with Dragon's Lair, play it, love it, like they will, of course, and then they can buy the sequel as it comes out, and then, in between they can buy Space Ace, because there's a huge following for Space Ace 2.
Yeah, that would be me. I used to have dreams when after all the Laserdisc hoopla had died down and the arcades were kind of vanishing. I would actually dream of finding a Space Ace machine in the arcade. That's pretty sad when that's what you're dreaming about. That's how you know you've crossed nerd status to ultra geek status, is when you dream about finding this machine. So, well,
look at it this way: when we started doing Dragon's Lair, and I introduced my wife to a Dragon's Lair arcade, a physical arcade.
Yeah.
The look on her face and the way she said, "You're not bringing that into the house." That is priceless.
That is absolutely priceless.
Especially when your response is, "But it's for research, honey."
It's for the job. It's my business. I bet that went over well. I tried that too when I dragged in 3 arcade cabinets into the house, and she didn't buy it any better than yours did.
No, and that's why doing Space Ace and doing Dragon's Lair 2 is ideal. Now, if I can only do a couple of more games like Mr. Do and Galaga, that would be awesome. But they're all.
Please do Mr. Do.
I would love to. Actually, apart from Dragon's Lair, I believe Mr. Do is my all-time favorite. In fact, if you can find out for us who has the rights to Mr. Do, we'll approach them and see what we can do.
Well, you know what? I will find out. Because Mr. Do, like you, Mr. Do and Shaolin's Road and Dragon's Lair are like 3 of my all-time favorites. And I've got Shaolin's Road now, compliments to that Konami pack. But I've yet to see a good handheld version of Mr. Do.
Well, I've actually never seen Mr. Do since the arcade, and the only thing I really remember, my best memory of Mr. Do, is that little cheat, if it was a cheat or a bug, I'm not sure, feature, I guess, where on the very first screen you could dig yourself under an apple, and then you could let yourself fall to the bottom of the screen with the apple on top of you, and then you got unlimited lives.
I do remember that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was the first screen or something like that, but it was something along those lines. And, of course, a little feature like that will, of course, be in a possible DS version.
Absolutely. Well, Hans, thanks so much for giving us like a full hour of your time. I know you're itching to get back to coding, and I'm itching to get back to work. My lunch hour's over.
Well, it's my pleasure talking to you.
This is great. I'm glad we had an opportunity to get this aired and let everyone hear right from the horse's mouth what's going on, and a lot of things I didn't want to talk about without clearing it with you guys, and so this was a really nice way of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So we really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. We love you guys. It's a great show.
We love you guys. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And maybe we'll be checking back in as we get closer to release, and you can give us an update on how things are going.
Well, I expect you'll probably give some kind of preview on your show after you receive the first build next week, so you actually play it, and then the next week.
I'll probably be, if I could find time to drag myself away. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, but you're more than welcome to do that.
Fantastic. Well, you'll definitely be hearing it from me. So, well, thanks, Hans, again, and we look forward to playing Dragon's Lair on the DS, coming out, officially coming out first quarter of 2008, but hopefully maybe we'll see it a little earlier.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Well, thanks again, Hans, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, Hansi, thank you for spending some time with us. I'm sure everybody's excited, especially those who like Dragon's Lair, even those who aren't interested in the Dragon's Lair property, but are more interested in a more casual experience. I think you're going to be very interested in playing that new casual version of Dragon's Lair. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope they work on the box art a little bit. I wasn't real fond of what I saw so far.
And I don't know how much I can disclose. I think I'm still under NDA on a bunch of this stuff. The box art that you saw is not the final box art because the publisher changed their minds and they're going with the different box art. And I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you the other box art was better. The stuff you saw was better than what the publisher chose. But unfortunately, the publisher has carte blanche over all the distribution. So I'm hoping that before it actually ships, we'll be able to convince them otherwise. But that remains to be seen. So that's sort of an update with what's going on with me and the whole Dragon's Lair thing. And it's very exciting. It's very exciting to finally be part of not only the Dragon's Lair, not only a game on the DS, which is like my favorite system now of all time, but to be part of a game that has such a rich history that I've wanted to be part of so much that I've managed to inject myself somehow into the Dragon's Lair lore.
Yeah, Shane's Don Bluth's major groupie.
Yeah, I'm Don Bluth's groupie, and I'm a huge fan of his work. And while Dragon's Lair is actually not my favorite Laserdisc game, Space Ace is. Still, Dragon's Lair paves the way for Space Ace, as it were. So, if you want to see Space Ace, you need to buy Dragon's Lair because I've already been told pretty much that sales of Dragon's Lair will most likely influence if and when we see Space Ace. So, yeah. So let's go out and buy those copies, shall we? It's due to release in the first quarter of 2008. And it will probably be ready before then, but they're smartly keeping it on the burner until after the major holiday releases, which is probably smart. It's not exactly something you want to compete with shelf space with something like Zelda or Mario Party. This is the sort of thing you want to compete with after Christmas shelf space. So, smart.
Yeah, this would be a good spring title.
Yeah,
when the market's a little slower.
This will be a good spring title.
Excellent.
Sure. So,
looking forward to checking it out.
Well, what do you think, Chris? I think we're about done here. Do you think we've got enough show?
Do we mention the contest? What are we doing with that?
Okay, here's the deal. We did mention the contest. We've got beautiful battle styluses to give away. We got 10 of them. Now, how we're going to give these away, we're not sure yet. However, I can tell you there will be a contest. You're going to have to do something. It's not one of those send us an email and we'll put you in the hat.
It's not easy.
You're going to have to work for your supper when it comes to these guys. These are $14.95, these styluses, these metal battle styluses. And we're not just going to give these puppies away. We're going to make you work for it.
And all those iPod people, all those iTunes people who like to just suck down for ease from the site.
Guess what?
We'll have to actually visit dualscreenradio.com.
Nice job, Chris, to get that plug in there. I love that.
In order to win your stylus.
And
trust me, people will be lining up for these.
This is not going to be
we did this before, and we thought up a nice little screenshot contest. That's not to say we might not do that again, because it worked out so well. But we had lots and lots of entries.
Yeah, this is not one of those things where you're guaranteed to win just by entering. Not going to happen. Everybody wants these things. Believe me, these things are gold.
Yeah, we had quite a few entries last time, and trust me, these things are going to go. And let me tell you, they're really cool, as we mentioned earlier in the show.
Yeah, so, believe me, you like I said, you can't appreciate how great these styluses are until you use them. And trust me, once you use them, you will not use anything else. I've still got mine right here. And it's I don't know. It's beautiful. I've not yet once put it in somebody's hand where they did not make some unbelievable comment about it.
Wow, you must be a rich man.
You're very rich to have a stylus such as this.
You must get all the GameStop manager women.
Those hot young... Yeah, anyway. We won't go there. Oh, my. Okay, well, Chris, I think if that's going to probably wrap up this episode, right? I think we've got enough good content for our gracious listeners.
It's been a long night.
It has been a long
hopefully we'll be back in another month. Hopefully we'll be back on schedule.
That would be a plus. The holidays...
But, fear not, we are not closing up shop. We're just horribly busy. I mean, I'm luckily on a little 3-month absence, which is going to be ending right after Christmas. So I have a little more time, I guess. But I'm playing a lot of DS in between watching the child.
Yeah.
But I'll be going back to work, so it's going to add a little more trouble to my schedule, I guess. But we'll figure it out. Eventually we'll be coming out of the daylight savings. And hopefully that'll help things with scheduling between Shane and I.
Oh, and I do want to let you guys know that we are working on a new site. We're doing some updates right now, which is going to kind of keep things in hiatus a little bit. But we're kind of restructuring the site to be a little more database driven. In other words, we're taking away the side menu so we have more room for data. I'm working right now also on a custom report generator, which will allow you to basically make, save, and execute your own queries against our database using your own criteria. What columns do you want to see? What do you want to filter by? How do you want to order it? So basically, if you're only interested in action platformer games that were made by Namco that are released in the next 30 days, you'll be able to create that query, save it, and execute it anytime you feel like it.
Nice.
So it's going to be very cool.
I like what you're doing so far. I love the new little menu system. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of skin the site so that the colors and whatnot match the dual screen radio Wi-Fi uplink site, which is, of course, a nice little side plug for the DSR uplink site, which is your home to hundreds, I think we might even be in the thousands of friend codes. If you're having trouble connecting and making friends on the DS, this is where you do it. You go up there, you add the game to your own list, you jump up there, you put your number in, your friend code in, add others, they add you, you get an email notification. It's almost like being there. So lots of good comments from people on that system. It also supports Wii games that have friend codes. Good stuff. We're really trying to work hard to make this your number one resource for DS stuff. So hard at work there for you.
Yeah.
Even if we can't get a show out, we're still doing massive database updates. You guys don't understand what it's like to maintain this database.
I mean, www.dualscreenradio.com.
Yes. It's incredible. I mean, I put hours and hours every week into making sure the Wii and the DS games are updated each week so that you have a reasonable expectation of what's coming out. And, Chris usually does the DS stuff, but he's been just ass swamped. And so I've been kind of covering the DS and the Wii stuff, and stuff sneaks out you don't even know about. I mean, some sort of.
I especially like to keep up on the. I like to keep up on the import stuff, especially, and I do get to it. It just takes a little time.
Yeah, so be patient with us. Again, the best way to get your daily fill of info from us, from the community, is to visit dualscreenradio.com and go to the discussion forums. We have a very active user base, tons and tons of topics going on at any given time. I can't tell the podcasters enough that you're missing a bunch of what you could be experiencing by just catching the show and not jumping to the website, not going to the forums and seeing what people are talking about. So that's my shameless urgency on the podcasters to come to the website. Anything else, Chris?
I think that wraps it up, man. I think we're pretty much spent.
I am completely spent. I can't speak for you, but I am completely spent.
The next show, man, I mean, I think we've already got some cool stuff already planned out. I would think we would be looking forward to a Mario Party DS review.
I would definitely think that's in the works.
Yes. So very excited to discuss that. Been having a lot of fun with it with the wife. But I think that's going to be our big review for our next show. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it sounds great. This is Shane R. Monroe.
And this is Chris Hentschel. We're both still alive and coming at you live.
No, sort of live. Live but previously recorded.
Yes.
And remember, listening
is good.
All right, folks, you take care. We'll be back next month.
Bye-bye.